Tonight, we're going to uncover the full truth about Team Rocket, how they secretly shaped the Pokémon world. I know this is an exciting topic, but don't worry, I'll keep my narration calm to ensure you can still drift off. Thank you to those of you who've been joining us consistently. If you're falling asleep with us tonight, let me know in the comments how many nights in a row you've been here. And if this is your first night, just comment day 1. Now let's get back to the video. In the quiet corners of the Kanto region, where the tall grass rustles with the sound of wild creatures and the wind carries the salt of the sea, there is a shadow that has loomed over the world for nearly 30 years. It is a shadow that most trainers think they understand. They remember the black uniforms, the bold red letter stitched across the chest, and the clumsy antics of a trio chasing a yellow mouse across the television screen. But beneath the surface of the cartoons and the nostalgic memories of our first video games lies a narrative far more sinister, far more complex, and far more influential than almost any other force in the Pokémon universe. This is not just a story about a gang of thieves stealing pets for profit. This is the chronicle of an empire that fundamentally altered the course of biological history, a syndicate that blurred the lines between science and sacrilege, and a shadow government that almost succeeded in bringing the gods of the earth to their knees. Welcome to a journey into the deep lore of Team Rocket. If you are here, it is because you seek the truth that lies beyond the surface level gameplay. You are here to understand how a single man, operating from the basement of a gym in a quiet town, managed to build a web of influence that stretched from the prehistoric fossils of Mount Moon to the digital frontiers of the Cinnabar Island laboratories. We are going to explore the darkest corners of this world, from the tragic cries of a Mother Marowak in the Pokémon Tower to the chilling, unethical experiments that birthed the most powerful psychic entity the world has ever known. We will trace the bloodlines of leadership, the hidden motivations of the executives, and the secret wars fought in the pages of manga and the frames of forgotten cinema. Close your eyes or keep them fixed on the flickering light of the screen, and let the familiar sounds of the Pokémon world wash over you. But listen closely, because beneath the cheerful melodies of the Pokémarts and the bustling energy of the cities, there is a low rhythmic hum of machinery. It is the sound of a radio signal broadcasting from the Lake of Rage, a frequency designed to force evolution against the will of nature. It is the sound of a cloning vat bubbling in a secluded mansion. It is the sound of a criminal organization that refuses to die, even when its leader vanishes into the mountains to find himself. Why does Team Rocket matter? Why, after all these decades and the rise of teams that wanted to flood the world or rewrite time itself, does the red letter R still command such respect and fear? It is because Team Rocket is the most human of all the antagonists. They are not driven by misguided philosophy or the desire to create a utopia, greed, power, and the obsession with control. They represent the dark side of the bond between human and Pokémon, the moment where partnership turns into exploitation. By studying them, we study the very nature of the Pokémon world's fragile peace. Tonight, we are going to peel back the layers of this organization. We will look at the man known as Giovanni, not just as a boss, but as a father, a gym leader, and a visionary who saw Pokémon not as friends, but as weapons of mass destruction. We will examine the technology they pioneered, the lives they ruined, and the legacy they left behind that continues to haunt the regions of Johto, Alola, and beyond. We will uncover the secrets of the Silph Company takeover, the truth behind the creation of Mewtwo, and the desperate attempts of a disbanded army to call their master back from the void. This is a long-form exploration designed for the deep thinkers, the lore hunters, and those who find peace in the intricate details of a well-constructed world. Whether you're settling in for a night of sleep or looking to lose yourself in a marathon of storytelling, you have come to the right place. The world of Pokémon is often painted in bright, vibrant colours, but tonight we are going to look at the ink that makes those colours possible. We are going to look at the darkness that defines the light. Think back to the first time you stepped into the Viridian City gym. The floor was made of cold stone, and the air felt different than any other gym you had visited. There was no welcoming committee, no advice from the man at the door. There was only the presence of a man who stood at the end of a long path of arrows and traps. That man was the final barrier between you and the Pokémon League, and he was also the architect of the greatest criminal conspiracy in history. How did he maintain that double life? How did the authorities miss the fact that the most powerful trainer in the region was also its greatest threat? The answers are buried in the archives of the Kanto and Johto regions, hidden in the dialogue of nameless grunts and the discarded notes of scientists who went too far. We will piece together the timeline, from the early days of fossil hunting to the high-stakes radio tower sieges. We will look at how Team Rocket evolved from a localized gang into a multiversal threat capable of tearing holes in reality itself. We will discuss the tragic backstories of those who fell into the Rocket ranks, the orphans and the outcasts who found a home in the shadow of the radar. This is the full truth about Team Rocket. It is a story of ambition, a story of science without ethics, and a story of a world that was almost lost to the darkness. As we begin this descent into the history of the Syndicate, let the outside world fade away. Let the sounds of your room dissolve into the ambient hum of a rocket hideout. The journey is long, the secrets are many, and the truth is far more complex than you ever imagined. We begin at the beginning, before the Master Ball, before the Red Gyarados, and before the ultimate clone. We begin in a world where a young boy named Red stepped out of Pallet Town, unaware that he was about to collide with a force that had been shaping his world from the shadows for years. This is the history of the Empire. This is the legacy of Giovanni. This is the secret heart of the Pokémon world. Step into the shadow. The boss is waiting. In the bustling region of Kanto, where young trainers chase badges under sunny skies, a criminal empire slithered into existence right under everyone's noses, woven seamlessly into the fabric of the 1996 originals, Pokémon Red, Green and Blue. These weren't shadowy figures lurking in forgotten caves or distant seas. No, they operated from the heart of cities, their black uniforms blending with the crowds at Pokémon centers, their grunts whispering deals in alleyways behind gyms, all while the world celebrated league victories and rare catches. So Team Rocket arrived not with fanfare, but as a whisper of corruption, stealing Pokémon under the cover of routine thefts, their operations so embedded in daily life that most trainers dismissed sightings as urban legends. You could walk Viridian City any day, feel the pulse of ambition in the air, the gym's towering silhouette promising glory to challengers. And there, behind that unassuming door, sat Giovanni, the 8th gym leader, a man of quiet authority with a Persian at his side, eyes sharp as a blade. To the public, he embodied Kanto's elite, strategist, battler, pillar of the league system. Trainers lined up for his earth-shaking Raiden, his Nidoqueen that cracked arenas like eggshells, earning his badge as a rite of passage. But peel back that veneer, and Giovanni reigned as the unchallenged mastermind of the underworld. Is his gym a front for laundering profits from black market trades? His office hiding maps of raid routes and ledgers, tallied in rare candies and stolen fossils? His vision pulsed through every rocket cell, a philosophy carved in cold steel. Pokémon weren't companions or friends to be cherished. They were tools, raw materials hammered into profit machines, or weapons sharpened for global dominance. Grunt snatched Pidgey from nests not for battles, but to flood underground auctions where collectors paid fortunes for the exotic. Raticate gnawed through security vaults. Machop hauled crates of illicit goods under moonless skies. Giovanni saw the potential in every species, the brute force of Onyx to topple rivals, the psychic edge of Abra to mind control shipments, the sheer numbers of Zubat swarms to overwhelm enforcers. when profit fueled expansion, from slowpoke tails sliced and sold as delicacies in distant markets, to experiments twisting evolutions for stronger soldiers. Dominance wasn't a dream, it was the endgame. Kanto just the proving ground before they claimed the world. Picture the underbelly of Celadon City, where the game corner's slot machines chimed endlessly, drawing in marks with promises of jackpots. Beneath the flashing lights, Rocket's casino funneled winnings into their coffers, grunts posing as dealers, while elites monitored high rollers for Pokémon trades. Giovanni's reach extended there too, his funding propping up the operation, ensuring every coin spun back to arming the syndicate. Trainers lost savings on Voltorb rigged to explode on bad luck streaks, oblivious that their rare catches ended up in holding pens and catalogued for value, a Vulpix for its fiery allure in entertainment rings, a prime Venonat for venom extraction in illicit brews. Even Saffron City's gleaming towers hid their stains. Silph Co, beacon of innovation, with Pokeballs that never missed, became a prize Giovanni coveted, his agents infiltrating boardrooms disguised as executives. The Master Ball, that flawless capture device, wasn't meant for heroes. It was Rocket's key to netting legendaries, bending them into unbeatable enforcers. Giovanni's dual life thrived on this deception. He'd shake your hand after a gym defeat, commend your strategy, all while dispatching orders via coded radio waves to sabotage League scouts. His Persian lounged publicly as a status symbol, but privately prowled warehouses, clawing dissenters who questioned the creed. This shadow reshaped Kanto without a single public declaration. Gym leaders like Erica turned blind eyes to poaching in her forests, whispers of payoffs silencing investigations. Professor Oak's lab received anonymous tips on rare specimens, only for Rockets to intercept deliveries en route. The philosophy infected every level. Grunts brainwashed into seeing Pokémon as expendable, admins like those who'd later rise enforcing quotas with electric prods, Giovanni plotting from his Viridian throne room, where walls hid safes stuffed with evolutionary stones pried from miners' grips. Trainers like you, fresh from Pallet Town, stumbled into their web unknowingly. A missing Oddish here, a fenced Magnemite there, small thefts building to tidal waves of control. Giovanni's empire didn't announce itself with armies. It grew through subtlety, Yao profit margins calculated to the poker dollar, weapons forged in hidden labs where Pokémon screamed under forced mutations. Global dominance loomed, Kanto the Forge heating the blade, yet cracks formed early in the craggy heights where ancient secrets slept and Rocket's greed unearthed more than they bargained for. Their boldest excavation yet, deep within Mount Moon, exposed the Syndicate's claws, like never before, pulling unwitting heroes into the fray. What horrors did they awaken there, and how did it unravel their perfect camouflage? That's the unraveling we chase next in the Mount Moon excavation. As Giovanni pulled the strings from his Viridian gym throne, his grunts wasted no time, launching their earliest strikes against Kanto's hidden treasures. Picture the jagged silhouette of Mount Moon rising against the Kanto skyline. That sprawling cave network riddled with ancient secrets, where the air hangs thick with the scent of damp earth and echoing drips from unseen stalactites. This wasn't just any rocky hideout. It became ground zero for Team Rocket's audacious debut operation, a calculated raid on nature's vault. You see, Mount Moon cradles some of the rarest prizes in the Pokémon world. Shimmering moonstones, those ethereal crystals that trigger evolutions in Pokémon, like Clefairy and Jigglypuff, turning ordinary creatures into powerhouses overnight. But Team Rocket didn't come to admire them. Grunts swarmed the depths like shadows detaching from the walls, their black uniforms blending into the gloom as they pried glowing stones from crystal veins, with cold precision. These weren't petty thieves. They were stripping the mountain bare, or hauling out crates of the stuff to fuel Giovanni's black market empire. Each moonstone fetched a fortune, from shady collectors, bankrolling bigger schemes while leaving the local Clefairy population scrambling in the dark. But the real jackpot lay deeper, buried in layers of sediment older than human memory, prehistoric fossils, remnants of long-extinct Pokémon like the Dome and Helix varieties. Imagine the thrill for a grunt cracking open a fossilized shell, brushing away millennia of dust to reveal bones that could be revived into loyal Kabuto or Omanita servants. Team Rocket's excavators worked in shifts, their headlamps cutting through the pitch black. Dynamite blasts muffled to avoid drawing trainers from Cerulean or Pewter. They shipped those fossils straight to hidden labs, where scientists under Giovanni's payroll would resurrect them as a disposable muscle, perfect for underground fights or guard duty. It was efficient, ruthless, and utterly transformative, turning Kanto's geological history into weapons for profit. Yet, as these thefts escalated, something far more sinister stirred in the Rocket chain of command. High-ranking admins, those shadowy executives, one step below Giovanni himself, arrived to oversee the chaos. One in particular, a cold-eyed operative with a lab coat draped over his uniform, carried vials of a secret potion, a volatile brew cooked up in Rocket's clandestine R&D bunkers. This wasn't some harmless growth serum. It was a forced evolution accelerant, a glowing purple elixir designed to hijack a Pokemon's natural cycle. They'd snatch wild Geodude or Zubat from the caves. They'd inject the potion straight into their veins and watch as the creatures writhed in agony, their bodies twisting prematurely into Graveler or Golbat forms. The process was brutal. You'd hear the screeches echoing through the tunnels, the crack of shells hardening too soon, the frantic flapping of wings sprouting before they were ready. Pokémon emerged warped, unstable, their evolutions incomplete and aggressive, lashing out at anything in sight. The admin justified it as progress. Why wait for nature when you could engineer obedience on demand? These super-evolved guards patrolled the excavation sites, deterring curious hikers with bursts of unbridled fury. It was Team Rocket's first taste of bioalchemy, a blueprint for the mass experiments that would follow, proving they could bend life's rules for their gain. Word of these disturbances trickled out, whispers among trainers about caves crawling with hostile, oversized Pokémon that didn't belong. That's when you, as the young protagonist Red, stepped into the fray. Fresh from your badge hunt, maybe with just a Pidgey and a starter at your side, you descended into Mount Moon expecting a routine fossil hunt. Instead, you stumbled on the grunts mid-haul, crates overflowing with pilfered moonstones glinting under torchlight. A scuffle broke out, your Pokémon clashing against theirs in the narrow passages, rocks crumbling as battles raged. Then came the revelation. You cornered that admin in a chamber lit by bioluminescent fungi, his potion vials shattering on the floor in a hiss of acrid smoke. He sneered about advancing the species, force-feeding the serum to a captured Paras before your eyes, the mushroom creature ballooning into a parasect right there, its eyes glazing over with artificial rage. You battled it down, but not before overhearing fragments of chatter on their radios, codes about shipments to Saffron, hints of a boss pulling strings from a gym facade. That moment crystallized it for you. This wasn't random banditry. Mount Moon was just the tip, a skirmish exposing a web of theft, experimentation, and conspiracy snaking through Kanto's heart. Those early clashes didn't just net you a fossil or two, they ignited your suspicion of something vast and coordinated. Grunts scattered, but the damage lingered. Depleted caves, scarred Pokémon, and a trail of clues leading outward. Red, you emerged from those depths changed, your Pokédex humming with data on unnatural evolutions, your resolve hardening against the shadows. Yeah, Team Rocket had tipped their hand too soon, alerting a hero who would unravel their empire thread by thread. And as you pressed on toward Lavender Town, rumours swirled of worse horrors brewing there, blood spilled and bones restless in the night. What unholy experiments awaited in the Pokémon Tower, where ghosts and grief intertwined with Rocket's blade. Stick around for Chapter 3, Blood and Bone in Lavender Town, because the bodies are just starting to pile up. As the echoes of Mount Moon faded, with Team Rocket's admins peddling their twisted potions to warp Pokémon evolution ahead of nature's schedule, the Syndicate set its sights on Lavender Town, a place already steeped in quiet sorrow. This sleepy hamlet, forever cloaked in perpetual twilight fog, stood as Kanto's unspoken graveyard, where trainers came not for battles, but to mourn. At the heart of it all loomed the Pokémon Tower, a 7-story spire of weathered stone piercing the lavender haze like a forgotten monument. Devout locals gathered here to pay respects to fallen companions, lighting incense that curled through cracked floors and whispering prayers to the wind. Bells tolled softly from the pinnacle, a somber rhythm that blended with the distant cries of nocturnal Wingull. But beneath that veil of reverence, something profane stirred. Team Rocket didn't stumble upon the tower by accident. They claimed it deliberately, turning a sanctuary into their fortress. Grunts swarmed the upper levels, their black uniforms blending into shadows as they barred every stairwell and doorway. No trainer could ascend without stealing for combat, and even then, victory brought only fleeting relief. All whispers spread through Lavender's streets. Ghosts prowled the halls now, vengeful shades that struck without mercy. The air grew thick with an unnatural chill, incense smoke twisting into skeletal forms that clawed at intruders. The tragic occupation of the Pokémon Tower and the haunting of the restless spirits marked the moment when Pokémon's world cracked open to reveal true horror. These weren't mere apparitions from folklore, they were raw manifestations of grief, drawn by atrocities no child playing the game could fully grasp. Trainers armed with Silph scopes pierced the illusions, revealing not spectral Pokémon at first, but human imposters, rocket disguises meant to terrify and repel. Yet deeper in, the illusions shattered into reality. Ghastly drifted with glowing eyes, Haunter cackled from rafters, Gengar lurked in corners, feeding on fear like it was their lifeblood. What fueled this spectral uprising? A mother's rage, unquenchable and primal. On the 5th floor, amid scattered bones and flickering candlelight, the ghost of a Marowak lingered, her skull mask cracked, bone club gripped in spectral claws. She wasn't always this way. Once, she roamed the tower's base, fiercely guarding her tiny Cubone, that orphaned Pokémon with its eternal grief-stricken mask. But Team Rocket grunts, hungry for control, struck her down in cold blood right there on those sacred stones. Axes bit deep, her final roar echoing as she shielded her young one, blood staining the prayer rug's crimson. The brutal murder of a Marowak mother, marking the franchise's darkest narrative shift, severed any pretense of cartoonish villainy. This wasn't theft or trickery, it was slaughter, raw and visceral, the first time Pokémon lore spilled genuine blood. Her spirit refused to pass on, haunting the very spot, forcing every challenger to battle her shade. Win or lose, her cries pierced the soul, a bone club swing that felt like judgment itself. Word spread, the tower wept, its bells tolling discordantly, as if the structure mourned with her. Why claim such a haunted prize? Team Rocket's exploitation of the afterlife to guard their secret experiments twisted the tower into more than a blockade. Those grunts weren't idle sentries. They concealed underground labs burrowed into Lavender's roots, where forbidden research hummed in the dark. Drawing from Mount Moon's playbook, they refined those evolution potions here, testing on captured wild Pokémon snatched from nearby roots. Ghastly lines, already ethereal, became unwilling subjects, forced mutations that blurred life and death, creating abominations that slipped between planes. Imagine the dim glow of alchemical vats seeping through floorboards, the acrid tang of chemicals mingling with incense. Grunts whispered of ghost amplifiers, devices to harness spectral energy for weapons, binding Haunter to mechanical shells, or amplifying Gengar's shadow sneak into city-wide blackouts. The ghosts, restless from the Marowak slaying, served as unwitting wardens, their hauntings amplified by rocket tech to scare off Chansey healers and psychic investigators. Lavender's radios crackled with static, broadcasting distorted wails that kept the town paralyzed. Local lore deepened the dread. Elders spoke of the tower's origins, built atop ancient burial mounds where Kanto's first shamans communed with the departed. Team Rocket's intrusion desecrated that pact, stirring spirits long dormant. Cubone sightings spiked nearby, the little ones drawn to their mother's echo, their cries a chorus of loss. Trainers who cleared the tower found not glory, but a bone flute, a relic of her final stand, played to summon her ghost anytime, anywhere. Yet the syndicate pressed on, blind to omens. Giovanni's orders filtered down: hold the line, protect the labs at all costs. Experiments escalated, fusions of ghost essence with rare fossils smuggled from Mount. Moon prototypes for spectral soldiers. One leaked report, buried in game files, hints at early cloning trials here, ghost-type essences imprinted on embryonic forms, foreshadowing horrors to come. The tower pulsed with stolen life force, floors creaking under invisible weights. As protagonists like Red pushed upward, battling grunt after grunt, the air grew heavier, each victory peeling back layers of deception. Defeating the Marowak ghost didn't exorcise her, it freed her to wander, a guardian unbound. Rockets fled downward, but the stain lingered, Lavender forever altered, its fog thicker, its nights longer. Team Rocket had weaponized mourning itself, proving no sacred ground was safe. This bloodshed rippled outward, trainers questioning the League's silence. Why no intervention from Saffron's elites? Whispers of deeper complicity grew. But the tower's fall signaled escalation as Team Rocket's gaze turned to gleaming corporate heights, where technology promised even greater power. Hold tight, because in Chapter 4, the Silph Co. Siege, you'll uncover how they stormed Saffron's heart, twisting innovation into invasion. What happens when they seize the Master Ball's cradle? You won't believe the tech they nearly claimed. As the echoes of that Marowak's vengeful cry faded from Lavender Town's shadowed spires, Team Rocket turned their ruthless gaze toward the gleaming heart of Kanto's industrial powerhouse, Saffron City. Here, amid towering skyscrapers and bustling streets alive with the hum of innovation, stood Silph Company, a fortress of scientific ambition where the brightest minds forged tools to bend Pokémon to human will. Giovanni saw not a rival corporation, but the key to unchaining his empire from petty thefts and towards something godlike, control over the untamable. Saffron wasn't just any city. It pulsed as Kanto's nerve center, a labyrinth of steel and glass where executives in crisp suits hurried between boardrooms, their briefcases stuffed with blueprints for devices that could rewrite battles and economies alike. Silph Co. dominated the skyline, its massive headquarters a self-contained world of sterile labs, humming assembly lines, and prototype chambers glowing with ethereal lights. Employees whispered about breakthroughs in capture technology, spheres that promised perfection, no escapes, no failures, just absolute obedience. Giovanni, ever the strategist cloaked as Viridian's stoic gym leader, had watched from afar. His grunts reported every leak, every guarded schematic. The time for scavenging fossils or tails was over. He hungered for Silph's crown jewel. The siege began under a shroud of midnight fog rolling in from the sea. Rocket transports, sleek black vans masked as delivery trucks, slipped past outer patrols, disgorging waves of grunts in their signature uniforms, are emblazoned like a scarlet wound. Explosives cracked the loading docks, smoke billowing as alarms shrieked through the corridors. Executives barricaded doors, but Rocket's numbers overwhelmed them. Persian claws slashed at security Pokémon, while Zubats swarmed ceilings, blotting out emergency lights. Floor by floor, they claimed territory. Labs shattered under booted feet. Scientists dragged from consoles at gunpoint, or worse, coerced with threats to their rare specimens. By dawn, Silph Co. flew the rocket flag from its pinnacle, a full-scale corporate takeover executed with surgical brutality to seize every scrap of cutting-edge capture technology hidden within. You can almost hear it, the frantic clatter of keyboards silenced, the low growls of captured Pokémon echoing in holding pens, the sharp tang of ozone from overloaded machinery. Giovanni strode the executive suites like a conqueror, reclaiming his throne, his Persian at his heel, eyes scanning holotables flickering with stolen data. Grunts hauled prototypes to secure vaults, but the true prize lurked deeper. The Master Ball. Not just any Pokeball. This was alchemy distilled into steel and synth fiber, a flawless orb, unblemished white, engineered to ensnare any Pokémon without fail. No thrashing free, no counterattack, no mercy. Silph's engineers had cracked the code through years of quantum lattice research, modulating energy fields to sync perfectly with a creature's aura, collapsing resistance in an instant. Giovanni envisioned legions of these spheres in rocket hands, not for trainers' collections, but as the ultimate tool for subjugating legendary beings. Articuno's icy tempests, harnessed. Zapdos's thunderous fury, bottled. Moltres' infernos, leashed. Mew's elusive whims, caged forever. Imagine fleets of Master Balls deployed from hidden blimps, snaring gods mid-flight, turning Kanto's myths into obedient weapons for his global dominion. He pored over the specs himself, barking orders to reverse engineer production lines, right there in the blood-stained halls. Admins like Archer coordinated the flow, funneling tech to underground foundries, while Proton's hackers purged Silph's firewalls. The air grew thick with ambition, sparks flying from jury-rigged fabricators birthing the first illicit batches. Rocket wasn't stealing Pokémon anymore. They were stealing power itself. But Saffron's fall rattled the region. Trainers whispered in Celadon cafes. Gym leaders mobilized shadows. Enter you. The young challenger, Red, fresh from Lavender's ghosts, Pikachu sparking at your side. Word spread of hostages trapped in the upper floors, Silph's president pleading through jammed signals. You infiltrated via secret paths, warping through the building's teleporter maze, a disorienting web Giovanni had rigged to trap intruders. Grunts fell in droves, your Eevee evolved mid-battle. Fists clenched against their Raticates and Voltor blasts. Elevators groaned under sabotage. Corridors reeked of singed fur and ozone. Each victory peeled back layers of Rocket's grip, liberating floors one by one. The tension built like a storm over the sea. You faced executives in boardrooms turned arenas, Proton unleashing wheezing clouds that choked the air, Ariana's Arbok coiling with venomous menace. Persian statues guarded warp panels, springing to life with claws like scythes. Deeper still, Giovanni waited in the executive suite, the Master Ball schematics glowing on a pedestal behind him. He loomed there, cane tapping marble floors polished to a mirror sheen, his voice a gravelly command laced with disdain. Foolish child, he sneered, unleashing his Raiden to quake the room, Nidoqueen charging with earth-shattering roars. Battles raged, your Pokémon pushed to limits, sparks and flames dancing across shattered glass. Giovanni's forces crumbled, his pride fracturing as you dismantled his cadre. In the end, it was raw will against Empire. Your final blows toppled his ace, Persian fleeing with a yowl. Defeated, Giovanni clutched his cane, eyes narrowing in the dim light. No rage, just cold calculation. Team Rocket. Disbands, he declared, voice echoing like a death knell. He vanished into the shadows through a hidden panel, leaving only whispers of training as his excuse, a lie to regroup, to lick wounds in hidden lairs. Silph Co. stood liberated, Master Ball prototypes scattered but schematics secured by Silph's remnants. Rocket scattered like smoke, grunts melting into alleys, but the siege scarred Kanto forever, proving Giovanni's reach knew no bounds. Yet, even in retreat, threads of his madness lingered, pulling toward forbidden labs on distant islands, where dreams twisted into nightmares. What unholy genesis awaited in the ashes of his ambition? That story unfolds next in Chapter 5, the genesis of Mewtwo. With the Master Ball now in their grasp, a tool capable of ensnaring even the mightiest legends without fail, Giovanni turned his gaze to something far more audacious. He sought not just to capture power, but to birth it anew, twisting the very essence of life into a weapon of unparalleled destruction. Hidden away on the smouldering slopes of Cinnabar Island, where the Earth's fury bubbled just beneath the surface in geothermal vents and ash-choked craters, a clandestine laboratory hummed with forbidden ambition. This was no ordinary research outpost amid the island's famous hot springs and Pokémon gym. Buried deep underground, shielded by layers of reinforced obsidian and deceptive seismic camouflage, it pulsed with the glow of bioluminescent tanks and the low whine of genetic sequencers. Here, Giovanni's vast black market fortunes flowed like lava, secret funding funneled through anonymous shell companies and rocket couriers who vanished into the island's foggy mists. The beneficiary was Dr. Fuji, a once respected geneticist whose grief had warped into obsession, handpicked for his willingness to shatter every ethical boundary. Dr. Fuji had lost his daughter, Amber, to a sudden illness years before, her tiny body claimed by a fever that no medicine could conquer. In the sterile isolation of his Cinnabar bunker, he poured that personal tragedy into a project that blurred the line between science and sorcery. Giovanni provided the resources, unlimited funding, state-of-the-art cloning vats imported from Kalos Black Labs, and security details disguised as geothermal surveyors. But the true spark came from a prize more mythical than any fossil or moonstone pilfered from Mount Moon. Fuji obtained a single eyelash, rumored to be pilfered from a South American jungle expedition, of Mew, the elusive ancestor of all Pokémon, a phantom pink sprite said to possess every genetic trait in existence. Mew's DNA, shimmering with infinite potential, became the blueprint. Yet cloning a legend demanded more than code. It required a vessel, something to anchor the ethereal into flesh. Fuji chose the unthinkable, the preserved remains of his own Amber, cryogenically frozen since her death, her cells still viable in that heartbreaking limbo. He merged Mew's ancient helix with her fragile human Pokémon hybrid frame, nurturing the embryo in amniotic chambers lined with synthetic webs that mimicked a caterpie's cocoon. Tubes snaked through the dim-lit halls, pumping nutrient serums laced with evolutionary accelerators stolen from Silph's vaults. The air grew thick with the tang of ozone and formaldehyde, punctuated by the rhythmic beeps of monitors tracking fetal heartbeats that weren't entirely animal. Grunts whispered of shadows moving in the tanks, of Amber's face flickering in the embryo's translucent form, her innocent eyes pleading through the murk. For months, the project teetered on the edge of miracle. Fuji documented it all in encrypted logs, his voice trembling with mania as he described the hybrid's psychic pulses rippling through the lab's steel walls, bending spoons left on counters into pretzels. Giovanni visited in the dead of night, his Persian at his heels, eyes gleaming at the prospect of a Pokémon engineered for conquest, stronger than any gym leader's ace, loyal only to Rocket's creed. The doctor promised a god, immortal, telepathic, a psychic colossus to shatter regions and enforce Giovanni's empire. But beneath the triumph lurked instability. The tanks overheated from unchecked psychic feedback, cracking like eggshells under pressure. Alarms blared as neural spikes overloaded the grid, plunging corridors into strobe-lit chaos. Then came the catastrophic failure. It started with a scream, not human, not Pokémon, but something primordial echoing from the gestation chamber. The embryo, now a hulking violet form suspended in fluid, awoke too soon. Mew's boundless DNA rebelled against the child's mortal shell, twisting genes into knots of rage and sorrow. Amber's memories flooded the clone's mind, flashes of fevered nights, a father's tear-streaked face, fueling a psychic storm that shattered the lab's core. Walls buckled as telekinetic waves hurled scientists into molten vents. Cloning vats exploded in geysers of glowing viscera, flooding halls with amniotic fire. Dr. Fuji, clutching a flickering console, witnessed his creation's eyes snap open, purple irises burning with betrayal. In that instant, Mewtwo was born, a psychic god, raw and vengeful, its first act the annihilation of its birthplace. And Mewtwo's emergence was cataclysmic. The island trembled as if Mount Cinnabar itself recoiled, seismic sensors registering it as a natural quake. The lab vanished in a fireball of warped metal and psychic residue, burying secrets under tons of rubble. Fuji perished amid the inferno, his final words lost to the roar. Giovanni, tipped off by a surviving grunt's frantic radio burst, arrived too late, finding only scorched earth and a psychic afterimage that seared his mind, a promise of unfinished business. Mewtwo fled into the shadows, its godlike fury unbound, a living testament to Rocket's hubris. In the aftermath, whispers spread through Kanto's underworld that Giovanni had disbanded Team Rocket entirely, vanishing to lick his wounds and ponder his next gambit. But what really happened during those 3 years of eerie quiet? Chapter 6, The 3-Year Silence, uncovers the remnants stirring in the dark, plotting a comeback that would shake Johto to its core. You won't want to miss how the embers reignited. As the dust settled on Cinnabar Island's shattered laboratory, with Mewtwo's psychic fury erasing every trace of Dr. Fuji's forbidden work and the soul of young Amber forever lost in that cloned abomination, Giovanni himself slipped into the ether. The man who had woven crime into the very fabric of Kanto's gyms and boardrooms was gone, his final words to the young trainer who toppled him echoing like a hollow promise. He needed time to train, to grow stronger. But in truth, no one knew if he was fleeing defeat, mourning his monstrous creation, or plotting from some unseen throne. Kanto held its breath in the aftermath. The streets of Saffron once choked with rocket grunts barking orders during the Silph Co. Siege now rang unnaturally empty. Gym leaders like Erica in Celadon and Lieutenant Surge in Vermilion whispered among themselves about the sudden quiet, their badges feeling heavier without the shadow of Viridian's 8th gym looming over them. Trainers who had battled through Rocket's fossil heists in Mount Moon or the ghostly horrors of Lavender Tower returned home as heroes. Yet the victories tasted bittersweet. Giovanni's empire, built on stolen Pokémon and black market fortunes from slowpoke tales, had crumbled overnight, leaving a power vacuum that sucked in every opportunistic thug and rival syndicate vying for scraps. That void reshaped Kanto in ways no badge or Pokéball ever could. Without Giovanni's iron fist, the region's underworld fractured into petty gangs peddling watered-down potions and fake master balls ripped off from Silph's blueprints. Viridian Gym sat abandoned, its earth-shaking Rhydon statues gathering dust, a silent monument to the boss who vanished. Rumors swirled through cerulean cafes and fuchsia markets. Had Giovanni been consumed by Mewtwo's wrath? Was he hiding in the Seafoam Islands, commanding an army of invisible Articuno? The Elite Four even debated intervening, but Lance, the Dragon Master, focused his gaze westward, sensing the cancer hadn't fully died. Yet amid this chaos, the true remnants of Team Rocket didn't scatter like frightened Rattata. They burrowed deeper, going underground in the most literal sense. Hidden bunkers beneath the Celadon game corner's flashing slots, forgotten tunnels snaking from rock tunnels' depths, and concealed warehouses along Route 8's foggy coasts became their new nerve centers. Grunts who survived the Silph Purge shed their black uniforms for civilian rags, blending into Pewter's fossil diggers or Pallet's quiet farms. Admins like Ariana and Proton, those cunning executives who once orchestrated the Pokémon Tower massacre, funneled leftover funds into black market networks spanning from Johto's ports to Hoenn's shadows. Rebuilding wasn't about flashy Mecca or public coups anymore, it was patient, venomous preparation. They scavenged shards of the Lake of Rage tech that would later force Gyarados evolutions, testing radiation emitters in sealed seafoam caverns where the air hummed with unstable energy, cloning vats salvaged from Cinnabar's ruins before Mewtwo's telekinetic storm, bubbled in secret labs under Saffron's sewers, attempting smaller-scale horrors like duplicate Zubats for spy swarms. Slowpoke tails, that grisly cash cow, were harvested in midnight raids on coastal caves. The severed appendages smuggled to underground auctions, where wealthy collectors paid fortunes for the regenerative delicacy. Proton's hackers cracked into Silph's residual networks, siphoning data on Ultra Wormholes years before such rifts tore open skies elsewhere. Every credit hoarded, every Pokémon silenced and caged, rebuilt their war chest not for revenge, but resurgence. You could feel the shift in Kanto's pulse during those 3 years. Parents in Lavender Town hushed their children at bedtime with tales of the Marowak ghost, now twisted into warnings about rocket phantoms lurking in the fog. Graffiti of the red R-scarred alley walls in Vermilion, vanishing overnight only to reappear bolder, a taunt from the ghosts below. Urban legends bloomed like weeping bell pods after rain. The rocket name morphed from feared syndicate to spectral myth, whispered by fishermen spotting black subs off Cinnabar's shores or trainers hearing eerie radio static on Route 11. Was that silhouette in Viridian Forest a grunt reviving old fossil experiments? Did the occasional grunt sighting in Goldenrod hint at bridges to new lands? The psychological scar ran deep, trust eroded in gyms, where leaders like Misty double-checked challenges for hidden rocket tattoos, and even Professor Oak's lab installed silent alarms against tail thieves. This silence wasn't peace. It was the calm before a storm brewed in shadows. Grunts drilled in mock takeovers of radio towers, admins plotted legendary bird hunts with Lieutenant. Surge's zap-happy blueprints and whispers of Giovanni's return filtered through coded messages etched into slowpoke shells. Kanto slept uneasily, its heroes like red vanishing to mount. Silver's peaks, unaware that the R emblem pulsed stronger beneath the surface. But as those 3 years ticked toward their end, faint signals crackled from the west, hints of slowpoke raids in Azalea, red waves lapping Lake of Rage. The remnants were ready, their underground empire forged in secrecy now itching for the light. What emerged would shatter the myth and reignite the terror, pulling Kanto's scars into Johto's heartland. Stick around for Chapter 7, the Johto Resurgence, where you'll uncover how these ghosts clawed back from legend to conquer a new region. Trust me, the radio tower coup alone will keep you wide-eyed till dawn. 3 years of silence in Kanto finally shattered when whispers from the west carried news of a gathering storm. In the rolling hills and misty lakes of Johto, the remnants of Team Rocket emerged from their underground lairs, no longer leaderless shadows but a reformed force hungry for revival. They had slithered across the sea from Kanto's ruins, drawn to Johto's untapped riches and lax oversight, where ancient towers and forgotten shrines offered perfect cover for their schemes. Picture the dim-lit chamber beneath Mahogany Town, where 4 figures convened under a single flickering bulb. Archer, with his sharp suits and sharper ambition, took the helm as the de facto voice of order. Ariana, her eyes like polished obsidian, commanded loyalty through sheer intimidation. Petrel, the mimic master with a grin that hid 1,000 disguises, wove deception into every plan. And Proton, the cold strategist whose Persian prowled like a living blade, tallied the costs of their comeback. This new council of executives marked the reformation of Team Rocket in the Johto region under a structure built for survival, not spectacle. No more brash invasions of gleaming skyscrapers. They pooled their grudges and gold, vowing to eclipse the old days. But glory demanded evolution. Gone were the days of storming Silph Co. With armies of grunts, lasers blazing and alarms wailing, the executives orchestrated a shift in tactics from direct confrontation to subtle, widespread economic sabotage, threading their poison through Johto's veins like roots cracking stone. They targeted trade routes, blackmailed merchants in Goldenrod's bustling markets, and rigged underground auctions where rare Pokémon fetched fortunes. Factories in Olivine choked on sabotaged shipments. Ships in the harbour listed under tampered loads, and banks in Ecrutake tallied phantom losses from hacked ledgers. Grunts posed as travelling salesmen, peddling tainted Pokeballs that malfunctioned mid-battle, eroding trust in the league's economy, one failed catch at a time. It was a slow bleed, invisible until the region gasped for air, all funneled back to fuel their hidden bases. At the heart of this resurgence pulsed a deeper ache, the desperate search for their lost leader, Giovanni, to restore the group's former glory. Posters fluttered in back alleys from Azalea to Blackthorn, coded messages in newspapers begged for sightings of the Viridian gym leader who had vanished into the wilds. Scouts scoured Mount Silver's treacherous peaks where blizzards howled and avalanches buried the unwary, whispering rumors of a shadowed figure training in isolation. The executives dispatched elite agents to Kanto's fringes, interrogating old contacts from the cloning labs, even bribing Lance's Dragonites for aerial sweeps. Giovanni wasn't just their boss, he was the myth that bound them, the man who tamed Mewtwo and toppled corporations. Without him, their operations hummed with efficiency, but lacked that electric terror, that promise of world-shaking dominance. Their first major play unfolded at the Lake of Rage, a serene mirror of water turned crimson nightmare. Deep in the Team Rocket hideout, carved into the mahogany wilds, technicians blasted radio waves from concealed towers, forcing Magikarp into berserk evolutions. The red Gyarados that erupted from the depths thrashed with unnatural fury, its roar echoing across Johto like a declaration of war. Champion Lance caught wind, slipping in with a young trainer at his side, but the executives were ready. Ariana's Pokémon swarmed with venomous precision. Petrel swapped faces to sow confusion among the guards, and Proton's traps turned the corridors into a labyrinth of electrified steel. They bought time, harvesting data on mass mutations that could weaponize entire schools of sea beasts. Word spread like fog over the Ilex forest. The council escalated, eyes fixed on Goldenrod's gleaming radio tower, the nerve center of Johto's communications. Archer led the coup personally, grunts in janitor uniforms flooding the studios while Proton jammed signals with experimental jammers. Ariana held the lobby in lockdown, her Houndoom's flames licking the marble floors as Petrel impersonated the director to broadcast rocket propaganda laced with subliminal commands. The airwaves crackled with their manifesto, a call for Giovanni's return, veiled as static bursts only their agents could decode. Trainers stormed the tower, Gold from New Bark Town, Crystal with her sketching precision, but the damage was done. Stocks plummeted, news blackouts crippled the league, and Johto's economy reeled from the sabotage. Even as defeats mounted, the executives pressed on, their network sprawling. They pursued the legendary birds, enlisting Kanto holdouts like Elictent, Surge, Koga, and Sabrina to chase Zapdos over the Whirl Islands, Articuno in the seafoam echoes, Moltres amid Cinnabar's smouldering craters. Fusing their prizes into the monstrous Thuphizer was a bid for power that rivaled Giovanni's wildest dreams, amplified by stolen badge tech. Yet every victory felt hollow without the boss's nod. Spies infiltrated Viridian Gym, only to find it a hollow shell echoing with Persian's lonely cries. In hidden war rooms, the council pored over Celaby sightings and time-warped herbs, convinced their leader lurked in some temporal rift. Johto's resurgence wasn't just survival, it was a symphony of shadows, each note tuned to summon Giovanni back from the void. Their economic stranglehold tightened. Fishermen in Chinwood cursed vanishing catches. Farmers in Violet City watched crops wither from tainted seeds, proving Rocket could choke a region without firing a shot. But cracks formed. Lance's mask hid a growing fury, and whispers of a silver-haired youth, Giovanni's own son, complicated the hunt. The executives clung to their council's fragile unity, plotting bolder strikes, their beacons flashing into the night. "Come back, Giovanni. Restore us." And it all traced back to those gruesome harvests in Azalea Town, where the real rot began to show. Next, we uncover the Slowpoke Tail Syndicate, the black market empire that funded this entire shadow war, and the horrors that finally drew the world's eyes straight to Rocket's doorstep. Deep beneath the misty hills of Azalea Town, where the air hangs thick with the scent of damp earth and forgotten prayers, Team Rocket's grunts uncovered a vein of desperation disguised as opportunity. Those executives pulling strings from the shadows had pivoted hard from Kanto's flashy invasions to something far more insidious, exploiting Johto's quiet underbelly for cold, hard cash. And their first big score? Slowpoke tails, harvested straight from the sacred depths of Slowpoke Well. Picture the well itself, a yawning chasm carved into the hillside, its walls slick with moisture and etched with ancient ilex forest runes that locals swore protected the pink, dopey inhabitants below. Slowpokes had gathered there for generations, their lazy forms drifting in shallow pools, tails flicking idly like forgotten fishing lines. Townsfolk revered them, tossing offerings of Oran berries into the gloom, believing the Pokemon's slow blinks brought good fortune to the honey-rich woods above. But Team Rocket saw only merchandise. Slowpoke tails, a rare delicacy in underground markets from Celadon to far-off Unova, fetched prices that could bankroll an army. Regrow in a month, they said. Painless like trimming a hedge. Lies, all of it. Grunts swarmed the tunnels under cover of night, their black uniforms blending into the shadows as they dragged heavy lanterns down crumbling ladders. Proton, that sneering executive with his poisoned Persian at his heel, oversaw the setup himself, barking orders that echoed off the stalactites. They netted the slowpokes first, hauling the sluggish creatures onto jagged stone slabs where they flopped helplessly, eyes wide in uncomprehending terror. Then came the blades, sharp, serrated rocket-issue knives designed for efficiency. One swift chop per tail, and the air filled with a wet snap, followed by guttural moans that reverberated through the well like the groans of the earth itself. Blood pooled in the cracks, mixing with the mineral-rich water, turning the pools a sickly crimson. The slowpoke didn't fight back. They were too slow, too trusting. But you could hear it in their drawn-out cries, a symphony of suffering that climbed the shafts and seeped into Azalea's dreams. This wasn't random brutality. The organization monetized Pokemon's suffering to fund their larger technological goals, slicing tails by the dozen and flash freezing them in portable coolers for swift shipment. Black market contacts in Goldenrod's back alleys paid top berry thousands per batch, rumors swirling of elite buyers in Saffron, who ground the tails into potions promising eternal youth or sharpened senses for underground battles. Every severed tail meant crates of Pokeballs, prototype evolution inducers, and bribes to keep Johto's cops looking the other way. Proton tallied the hauls nightly, wiring profits to hidden accounts that fueled the executive's grander schemes. Radio wave emitters for mass mutations, cloning vats humming back to life. Team Rocket wasn't just surviving the 3-year silence anymore. They were rebuilding an empire on the backs or tails of the innocent. Word spread slowly through Azalea, like sap from a wounded tree. Kurt, the Pokeball craftsman up the path, noticed the tainted apricorns first, their shells brittle from polluted groundwater. Locals whispered of vanishing slowpokes, of a foul stink rising from the wellhead. That's when Ethan stepped in, the young trainer from New Bark Town, his cap pulled low and Cyndaquil's embers flickering at his side. He'd heard the rumors on the road from Violet City, piecing together the sabotage from Violet Jim's whispers and a mangled slowpoke washed up on Ilex's shore. No hesitation, he rappelled into the well alone, flashlight cutting through the murk, boots splashing in blood-tinged shallows. Grunts spotted him quick, a swarm of 6 surrounding the harvest floor, Zubat screeching from the ceilings. Ethan moved like a storm, Cyndaquil scorching webs and fur, his fists clenched as he dodged a coughing smog. He cut through them one by one, poison sting deflected, hypnosis shattered by a well-timed tackle, until he faced Proton head-on. The executive sneered, unleashing his wheezing in a haze of toxic sludge, but Ethan's Pokemon pressed, flames licking the damp stone until the air shimmered with heat. Proton fled deeper, tail crates tumbling in his wake, but Ethan freed the captives. Tails still oozing, their moans softening as they slipped back into the pools. Azalea breathed again, Kurt carving a warning ball from the evidence. Yet as Ethan climbed out, tail stump clutched as proof. He glimpsed something that chilled him more than the well's depths. A discarded communicator, buzzing with coordinates to a lake in the north, voices plotting Phase 2 under Archer's cold command. This wasn't a lone grunt-op. The cruel harvesting operation in Azalea Town's Slowpoke well for black market profit marked the first signs of a coordinated revival, executives sinking their strikes like gears in Giovanni's old machine. Slowpokes would regrow, but Team Rocket's hunger, that was just awakening. And it gets darker from here. When those radio signals hit the waters up north, unleashing chaos no one saw coming, that's Chapter 9, the Lake of Rage incident, where a single red beast changes everything. Stick around, you won't want to miss how it spirals. Those black market profits from the Slowpoke tails didn't just line pockets. They fueled Team Rocket's most audacious experiment yet. One that twisted the very fabric of Pokémon evolution in the shadowed waters of Johto's Lake of Rage. Nestled between the rugged peaks of Mahogany Town and the misty expanse of Route 44, this serene lake had long been a haven for Magikarp schools, their scales glinting like scattered coins under the sun. But one fateful night, the air hummed with an unnatural energy, a piercing whine that cut through the fog like a scalpel. Team Rocket technicians, hidden in a concealed facility beneath the nearby mountains, activated their masterpiece, the deployment of high-frequency radio waves to force mass evolution in wild Pokémon. These waves, tuned to a precise bandwidth that mimicked the chaotic resonance of evolutionary stones, but amplified 1,000-fold, bombarded the lake from concealed emitters disguised as weathered radio towers along the shore. Picture the scene unfolding in the dead of night, the water bubbling violently as Magikarp thrashed in agony, their bodies convulsing under the relentless assault. The radio pulses overloaded their genetic codes, ripping away the natural barriers that govern evolution, compelling them to transform en masse into the predatory fury of Gyarados. Dozens emerged at once, their azure hides, churning the lake into a frothing maelstrom, roars echoing off the cliffs like thunder trapped in a bottle. Fishermen in nearby cabins bolted awake to the sight of serpentine shadows coiling through the mist, tails lashing waves 20 feet high. This wasn't nature's gentle progression, it was rocket science at its cruelest, a deliberate perversion aimed at creating an army of berserk behemoths loyal only through fear and conditioning. And from that chaos rose the most haunting symbol of their hubris, the red Gyarados, a shimmering aberration whose crimson scales burned like fresh blood under the moonlight. Unlike its kin, this one didn't just evolve, it mutated, its form swollen with rage-fueled power, eyes glowing with an intelligence twisted by pain. Legends whispered among Johto elders spoke of such a beast as an omen of calamity, a shiny anomaly born once every 100 generations. But Team Rocket had summoned it artificially, forcing a 1 in a million rarity through brute electromagnetic force. It rampaged unchecked, shattering boats and flooding the lakeside paths, its roars a perpetual siren that drove trainers away and sealed the area in terror. This living testament to Team Rocket's scientific cruelty circled the lake's depths, a perpetual guardian of their secret, its presence a warning that evolution could be hijacked, weaponized, turned against the wild itself. Word of the monstrosity spread like wildfire through Mahogany Town, where locals barricaded doors and whispered of rocket grunts spotted hauling equipment under cover of darkness. The hideout burrowed into the roots of the mountains like a festering wound, pulsed with the signal's core generator, a colossal dish arrayed with blinking consoles and vats of glowing amplifiers. Executives oversaw the operation from shadowed command centers, their voices crackling over intercoms as they marveled at the data streams, evolution rates spiking, power output surging, visions of deploying similar waves across Johto to churn out hordes for sale or conquest. But not everyone stood idle. Champion Lance, the Dragon Master whose silhouette struck fear into tyrants, caught wind of the disturbance during a routine patrol. Disguised in a trench coat that hid his elite cape, he slipped into mahogany under the veil of a stormy dusk, his Dragonite scouting the perimeter from above. The air grew thicker with static as he descended into the hideout's labyrinthine corridors, past patrols of grunts nursing Persian that snarled at intruders. Alarms blared too late. Lance's hyperbeam shattered security doors, his presence a whirlwind of scales and fury. He carved through Ariana's venomous defenses, her Arbok coils snapping futilely against his Aerodactyl's stone wings, then dismantled Petrel's illusions with a Gyarados of his own, tamed through true mastery rather than torment. Deep in the core chamber, Lance confronted the throbbing heart of the operation, that massive radio emitter, its waves now a deafening screech, threatening to engulf all of Johto. With a final earth-shaking clash, his Dragonite's outrage clashing against the machine's guardians, he overloaded the controls, sparks flying like dying stars as the signal died in a cascade of smoke and silence. The lake outside calmed almost instantly, the Gyarados horde retreating into stunned hibernation, though the Red One's crimson form lingered as a scarred reminder, occasionally breaching the surface with a mournful bellow. Lance's raid exposed the depths of Rocket's resurgence, scattering their technicians and buying Johto precious time, but the executives slithered away into the shadows, their grander schemes already in motion. Profits from Slowpoke Tales had bought the tech. This near catastrophe proved its potential. What came next would strike at the heart of communication itself, a bold seizure that echoed across the region. Stay with me for Chapter 10, the Radio Tower coup, where Team Rocket's executives turn the airwaves into their personal battlefield. You won't believe how close they came to broadcasting their dominance to every corner of Johto. As the echoes of the Red Gyarados' roar faded over the Lake of Rage, Team Rocket's executives knew their experiments had drawn too much heat from Johto's champions and trainers. The high-frequency waves that twisted Magikarp into monsters had served their purpose, funding the next phase of resurgence, but subtlety was crumbling. Their gaze shifted northward to the gleaming spire of Goldenrod City's radio tower, the heartbeat of Johto's communications network, pulsing with signals that reached every corner of the region. This towering structure, a marvel of steel and glass rising hundreds of feet into the cloudy sky, broadcasted news, music, and emergency alerts to millions. Its antennas sliced through the air like silver blades, carrying voices across mountains and seas. For Team Rocket, it wasn't just a landmark, it was the perfect weapon. Control the tower, and you control the narrative. They saw it as their megaphone to summon the one man who could reclaim their empire, Giovanni himself. The plan crystallized in the shadowed boardrooms of their mahogany hideout. Without their boss, the organization teetered on desperation. Grunts whispered of his disappearance 3 years prior, after the Silph Co. debacle in Kanto, where he'd vanished into self-imposed exile, claiming he needed to train. But the executives, Archer, Ariana, Petrel, and Proton, refused to let the flame die. These four formed the iron core of the revival, each bringing a ruthless specialty to the coup. Archer, the de facto commander with his piercing gaze and impeccable black uniform, orchestrated the operation like a symphony of shadows. His Lugia-inspired cape billowed as he issued orders, his voice a cold whisper that chilled even hardened grunts. Ariana, the venomous strategist, handled infiltration. Her poison expertise mirrored her cunning. She deployed squads disguised as maintenance crews, slipping paralytic toxins into security systems to disable alarms without a trace. Petrel, the master of mimicry, specialized in deception. With his Ditto at his side, he impersonated the station director himself, barking false orders over internal comms to lure staff into traps. His laughter echoed through vents as hostages were rounded up, bound in the basement amid humming generators. Proton, the brute enforcer with a penchant for dark types, secured the upper levels. His wheezing spewed smokescreens to blind resistors, while his hulking frame smashed through reinforced doors, ensuring no signal escaped until they were ready. Dawn broke over Goldenrod on the day of the takeover, the city alive with oblivious commuters and Pikachu vendors hawking trinkets. Inside the tower, elevators whirred to a halt as grunts in fresh uniforms, stolen from the laundry, flooded the lobby. Alarms blared briefly before Ariana's poisons silenced them. Petrel, now wearing the director's face like a second skin, addressed the airwaves with a fabricated emergency broadcast, urging citizens to stay indoors while Team Rocket's Black R logos unfurled across the facade. The hijacking was swift, surgical. Within hours, every frequency fell under their control, the cheerful pop tunes replaced by static laced with encrypted pulses. At the pinnacle, Archer stood before the master console, his fingers dancing over controls jury-rigged with stolen Silph Co. tech. This wasn't mere piracy, it was a beacon. They modulated the signal into a hyper-focused beam, piercing the ether toward Kanto, encoded with Giovanni's private cipher, a sequence derived from his Viridian gym battles, laced with data from the Lake of Rage Waves and Slowpoke Tail Profits. The message was clear. Boss, Johto bends. Return. Power awaits. Ariana monitored interference, her Arbok coiled at her feet, ready to strike any saboteurs. Petrel cycled disguises, posing as hostages to mislead intruders. Proton patrolled the stairwells, his eyes gleaming with fanatic zeal. Word spread like wildfire through Johto's trainer networks. The protagonist, whether Ethan, Chris, or Gold, raced to the city, joined unexpectedly by Silver, the red-haired prodigy with a chip on his shoulder and a lineage he barely understood. They stormed the tower floor by floor, battling waves of grunts whose Zubats swarmed like angry hornets and Rattatas gnawed at heels. The air grew thick with the ozone tang of electric attacks and the acrid bite of poison gas. Elevators jammed, forcing climbs up emergency stairs, slick with sweat and spilled potions. Confrontations escalated. Proton blocked the midway landing, his dark aura pulsing as his Houndoom unleashed flamethrower barrages, scorching walls and forcing retreats. Defeated, he snarled promises of vengeance before slinking away. Ariana lay in wait higher up, her vile plume spreading sleep powder that draped the corridors in hallucinogenic fog, whispers of defeat echoing in victims' minds. Petrel revealed himself in a swirl of transformations. Now a rocket, now a cop, now the hero themselves, his Crobat slicing through the chaos until unmasked. Archer held the summit, his Houndoom mirroring Proton's ferocity, but tempered with precision, psychic barriers from his team shattering illusions of victory. Yet, as the executives fell one by one, their grand broadcast fired skyward. The tower thrummed, antennas glowing with otherworldly energy, the signal arcing across the sea like a laser of desperation. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Static hissed. No response came. No Viridian voice crackled through the speakers. No silhouette emerged from the shadows. The console flickered, then died, the cipher rejected or ignored. Archer's fist clenched on the railing, overlooking the sprawling city lights twinkling mockingly below. Ariana's eyes narrowed, her composure cracking for the first time. Petrel dropped his final disguise, face pale. Proton kicked a console, sparks flying. The realization settled like fallout. Giovanni would not return. Their beacon had burned bright, but the boss had moved on, perhaps to greater conquests, perhaps to solitude. The council that propelled Team Rocket's final push for power in Johto shattered in that silence, grunts evacuating amid the wail of sirens. The tower coup marked the pinnacle of their Johto ambitions, a desperate gambit that exposed the fragility without their founder. But amid the rubble, one figure lingered, Silver, Giovanni's own son, whose conflicted path would unravel secrets that even the executives never grasped. In the next chapter, The Legacy of Silver will uncover how his hidden heritage threatened to redefine Team Rocket's future forever. What choices would he make when blood called to blood? Before we dive deeper into this incredible journey, I'm curious, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and let our global community know. And if you're finding this as mind-blowing as I am, hit that like button to help more people discover this story. As the executive's desperate broadcast echoed through Goldenrod's airwaves, calling Giovanni back from the shadows, chaos erupted within the radio tower itself. Archer barked orders from the director's suite, his fists clenched around a microphone slick with tension, while Proton's sly grin masked the grunt's growing panic below. But piercing through their final stand came an unexpected blade, a young trainer with crimson hair and eyes like smouldering coals, striking down rocket soldiers with ruthless precision. This was Silver, the elusive rival who'd shadowed Gold's journey from the outset, stealing Pokémon not for profit, but for power. And in that moment, as he turned his fury on the very organization he'd once skirted, the true weight of his presence began to unravel. Silver had haunted the fringes of Johto's turmoil, like a ghost in the mist. You'd first crossed paths with him in Newbark Town, where he snatched your starter Pokémon right from Professor Elm's lab, his voice a cold whip cracking through the night. Weaklings have no use for Pokémon. He battled you relentlessly across routes and gyms, his team a brutal mirror of your own. Feraligatr tearing through waves, Meganium shrugging off blows like they were nothing. But beneath that arrogance burned something deeper, a fracture you could sense in the way his commands faltered after every defeat. He wasn't just training, he was purging something rotten from his core. And now, here in the tower's flickering lights, with alarms blaring and executives scrambling, Silver aligned himself against Team Rocket, dismantling their defenses floor by floor alongside you. The pursuit led underground to the hidden Team Rocket HQ, nestled in Mahogany Town's snowy outskirts, a fortress carved from ice and steel where the air hummed with illicit machinery. Grunts patrolled corridors lined with humming generators and cages rattling with captured beasts, the scent of ozone and fear thick enough to choke on. Silver fought at your side, his breath sharp and measured, dispatching foes with a ferocity that bordered on vengeance. Deeper in, past labs bubbling with forced evolutions and vaults stuffed with stolen tech, you breached the command chamber. There, amid holographic maps pulsing with conquest plans, stood the executives once more, Archer's composure cracking, Ariana's glare venomous, Petrel's laughter hollow, Proton's tricks exhausted. But they weren't alone. A shadow detached from the throne-like chair at the room's heart, heavy footsteps echoing like judgment. Giovanni had returned, his Persian at his heel, eyes scanning the intruders with the cold calculation of a man who toppled empires before breakfast. The executives dropped to their knees in reverence, their voices a chorus of pleas for restoration. Yet Silver stepped forward, unflinching, his fists balled so tight, his knuckles gleamed white. "You're too late," he spat at his father's lieutenants. "This ends now." Giovanni's gaze locked onto him, a flicker of recognition sharpening into something paternal, possessive. "Silver," he rumbled, voice like gravel under boots. "My son, you've grown." The revelation hit like a hyperbeam to the chest. Silver, the estranged son of the criminal mastermind Giovanni himself. Abandoned in infancy to a harsh orphanage in Johto, raised on scraps and survival, Silver had clawed his way through a world that mirrored his father's shadow without ever knowing the full truth until whispers from rocket spies caught up to him. Giovanni had sired him during his early conquests, a fleeting union discarded like yesterday's scheme, leaving the boy to fester in resentment. Silver's thefts, his obsessions with strength, they weren't the makings of a new rocket heir, but a rebellion forged in isolation. He'd pieced together his lineage from intercepted transmissions, from the executive's careless boasts, and it ignited a fire not to inherit, but to eradicate. In that chamber, as Pokémon clashed in a storm of fangs and thunder, Silver's internal conflict laid bare for all to see. He hurled himself at Giovanni's Persian, dodging claws that could rend steel, his own team pushing limits they'd never touched before. Victory over his father slipped through his fingers. But not without cost. Giovanni retreated into the depths, weakened but unbroken, his organization splintering around him. Silph collapsed to one knee afterward, staring at the shattered console where his lineage had been confirmed, torn between the blood in his veins and the path he'd chosen. He hated Giovanni not for the abandonment alone, but for the legacy it tainted him with, the same greed that drove Team Rocket's endless cycle of theft and domination. From that moment, Silph's quest crystallized, to destroy the organization his father built, brick by illicit brick, proving his strength wasn't chained to crime, but liberated from it. You saw it evolve in the days that followed. While the executives slunk back to their dens, Archer plotting petty revivals, Ariana nursing grudges in smoke-filled lairs, their greed as stagnant as the slowpoke tails rotting in black market crates. Petrol's disguises fooled no one anymore. Proton's poisons lost their bite. They circled the same drain of power, unchanged, feeding on the organization's corpse like maggots on a kill. Silph, though? He transformed. Defeats humbled him, victories sharpened him. He released stolen Pokémon back to the wild, trained under the stars of Route 28, his team swelling with loyalty earned, not coerced. Where the admins wallowed in Giovanni's shadow, chasing echoes of Kanto's glory, Silph surged forward, a lone rocket ascending, his growth a stark rebuke to their decay. Johto's winds carried whispers of his solitary hunts, battling wild beasts in Ilex Forest's gloom, scaling the Tin Tower's spire under moonlit skies, each step distancing him from the Syndicate's rot. This rift echoed through Pokémon generations, those haunting shorts that peeled back the game's veil. There, Silph confronts Giovanni amid Viridian's ruins, rejecting an offer to lead. "I'll surpass you my own way," he declares, vanishing into the fog as father and son part like thunderheads. In Heart Gold and Soul Silver's remakes, post-game encounters deepen it. Silph at the summit, his team evolved not by science's whip, but by Bond's quiet forge, challenging you one last time before admitting, "I've still got a long way to go." His arc pierces the heart of Team Rocket's curse, legacy as both chain and catalyst, greed's stagnation versus redemption's grind. Yet Silph's shadow lingers over darker tales, where the elite admins rise in the manga's unforgiving pages, their betrayals and obsessions twisting Team Rocket into something even Giovanni couldn't contain. Stick around for Chapter 12, the manga chronicles, the elite admins, because what they unleash next will make Johto's fall look like a warm-up. While Silph grapples with the shadow of his father's empire, plotting his next strike against the remnants in Johto, Team Rocket's council of executives turns to an arsenal far more insidious than grunts, or even their own ranks. They summon the elite admins, shadows from Kanto's own power structure, men and women who wear the badges of gym leaders by day and orchestrate terror by night. In the twisted pages of the Pokémon Adventures manga, these figures emerge not as the quirky challengers you remember from the games, but as cold-blooded enforcers, their loyalties forged in Giovanni's fire, long before Johto's chaos. LT. Surge, the war-hardened veteran with a thunderbolt scar across his chest, isn't just a brash electric specialist anymore. He's a rocket admin whose eyes gleam with the fury of a man who's seen battlefields where Pokémon were mere ammunition. Koga, the ninja master of poison, slips through the darkness like venom in the veins, his every step a calculated kill. And Sabrina, the psychic prodigy, whose gaze could shatter minds, wields her powers not for sport, but to bend reality to Team Rocket's will. This darker portrayal strips away any heroism, revealing them as architects of suffering, their gyms mere fronts for recruitment and experimentation. Their activation comes at a desperate hour. With Red, the boy who toppled Giovanni years earlier, now a looming threat resurfacing in Kanto, the executives dispatch these admins on specialized missions, each tailored to the primal fury of the legendary birds tearing through the skies. Surge takes point on Zapdos, the electric tempest incarnate. Picture him in the jagged cliffs of the power plant, where rusted turbines hum with stolen energy. Surge's Raichu crackles with amplified volts, nets woven from conductive alloys snapping shut around the bird's wings as lightning storms rage unchecked. He doesn't capture for glory, he subdues with military precision, electrodes pulsing through Zapdos's body until its screams echo like dying generators, forcing submission through sheer overwhelming current. Koga, meanwhile, vanishes into the frozen labyrinths of the Seafoam Islands, his mission locked on Articuno, the glacial sovereign, whose wings summon blizzards that bury armies. The poison admin moves like a spectre, his Crobat scouting thermal vents where the bird nests amid bubbling geysers. He deploys a cocktail of toxins, rare venoms refined in rocket labs that seep into the ice, weakening Articuno's defenses without a sound. No flashy battles here. Koga's hunt is surgical. Webs of silken poison threads ensnaring feathers as the bird's icy breath turns to ragged frost. By dawn, the legendary lies encased in a cryogenic pod, its heartbeat slowed to a syndicate pulse. Sabrina claims the inferno of Victory Road for Moltres, the firebird whose flames could raise cities. Her psychic dominion turns the caverns into a hall of mirrors, illusions fracturing the bird's perception until it lashes wildly at phantoms. Sabrina's Alakazam hovers, telekinetic barriers containing the blaze while she probes Moltres' mind, unraveling its will thread by thread. The air thickens with ash and psi energy, the bird's roars twisting into psychic feedback loops that leave it docile, chained by thoughts it can no longer call its own. What makes this operation so unnerving is the chilling efficiency of a syndicate led by established regional authorities. These aren't faceless thugs. Surge commands respect from Vermilion's docks, Koga whispers commands from Future's shadows, Sabrina holds Saffron's elite in subtle thrall. Their dual lives grant access to restricted airspace, official transport, even Pokémon League oversight turned blind eye. Rockets move through checkpoints unchallenged, transports disguised as gym supply runs hauling sedated legends in reinforced cryo cages. Funds flow from black market auctions masked as training expos, experiments hidden in plain sight beneath gym floors. It's a machine oiled by public trust, grinding forward with the inexorable weight of authority. As the birds fall, one by one, crated and shipped to a fortified rocket outpost, the admins converge, their prizes pulsing with barely contained rage. Red closes in, sensing the disturbance rippling through Kanto's ley lines, but the trap is already sprung. These captures aren't ends in themselves, they're components, raw power harvested for something far more grotesque. The air grows heavy with the promise of unholy synthesis, badges amplifying energies in ways that defy nature itself. And that's where we edge toward Chapter 13, the fusion abomination, where these legendary captives twist into a nightmare beyond reckoning. You won't believe the monstrosity they unleash next, with the legendary birds finally ensnared by the relentless pursuits of Liptenon. Surge, Koga, and Sabrina, Team Rocket's elite admins, didn't stop at mere captivity. They dragged Zapdos, Articuno, and Moltres back to a fortified stronghold, their feathers singed and spirits broken, pulsing with raw elemental fury that echoed through the shadowed halls like distant thunder. These weren't trophies for a glass case. Giovanni's vision demanded more, a weapon to eclipse every rival, every hero who dared stand in their way. The admins, loyal to the bone, unveiled a device pilfered from the unlikeliest source, Green's badge amplifier. Crafted originally to amplify a trainer's bond with their Pokémon through the 8 Kanto badges, this tech had been reverse-engineered in Rocket's hidden labs. Green, the rival prodigy, who'd risen through Viridian's ranks, never suspected his invention would birth abomination. Picture the chamber, sterile steel walls humming with illicit energy, the air thick with ozone, and the metallic tang of fierce sweat from the grunts standing guard. Zapdos thrashed in electromagnetic restraints, lightning arcing wildly from its wings. Articuno's icy breath frosted the very air, crystals forming on the floor in jagged defiance. Moltres, flames roaring like a furnace gone mad, scorched any handler who came too close. The admins channeled the amplifier's power, its core glowing an unnatural violet, as it interfaced with the bird's primal essences. The fusion began with a surge that shook the foundations. Energy ribbons lashed out from the device, weaving through feathers and flesh, binding ice to fire to storm in a grotesque symphony. Screeches pierced the night, Articuno's mournful cry melting into Moltres' inferno roar, drowned by Zapdos' crackling bolts. Bodies contorted, merging in a swirl of azure, crimson and gold, scales forming where plumage once was, wings fusing into asymmetrical horrors that blotted out the lab lights. What emerged was no longer three legends, but one singular nightmare: Thufizur. This creation marked the pinnacle of Team Rocket's biological engineering, a living cataclysm designed to crush all opposition. Thufizur's form towered, a biomechanical terror, with Articuno's glacial spikes protruding from Moltres' volcanic hide, Zapdos thunderclouds swirling in its maw. It breathed blizzards laced with plasma, spewed magma storms that froze mid-air, and unleashed tempests that shattered mountains. Rocket scientists had woven in viral inhibitors to suppress the bird's wills, turning their godlike powers into a slave engine of destruction. Deployed, it could raze cities, subjugate regions, enforce Giovanni's empire with weather warped into apocalypse. Grunts whispered of its first test, a mock battlefield where wild herds vaporized in seconds, the ground left as glassed craters steaming under Johto's moon. Word of the abomination spread like frostbite through the underground networks. Heroes mobilized Red, the silent conqueror of Kanto. Gold, fresh from dismantling the radio tower. Even Silver, grappling with his bloodline's curse. They converged on Saffron City, where Rocket had teleported Thufizur for a public unveiling atop Silph Co. His spire, the same tower they'd once seized for tech like the Master Ball. Saffron streets choked with fog from the beast's aura, civilians fleeing as hailstones the size of Pokeballs pummeled the pavement. The desperate battle at Saffron City erupted at dawn, a clash that scarred the skyline. Red led the vanguard, his Pikachu dodging geysers of supercooled lava, while Venusaur ensnared Thufizur's legs in thorned vines. Gold flanked with Typhlosion's bursts, flames clashing against the fusion's own inferno in explosive stalemates. Silver struck from shadows, his Feraligatr shattering ice barriers, his every command laced with paternal rage. Thufizur rampaged, wings battering skyscrapers into rubble, its roars summoning tornadoes that uprooted Silph's antennas. But the heroes zeroed on the amplifier, now embedded like a tumor in the beast's chest. Green himself appeared, badge case in hand, overriding the rocket hack with a surge of pure trainer synergy. As the device whined in protest, fissures cracked Thufizur's hide, ice fracturing from fire, lightning grounding into harmless sparks. The air split with the bird's agonized rebirth, their forms peeling apart in a vortex of reverting elements. Articuno plummeted first, wings refreezing mid-fall, Moltres ignited skyward on reborn pyres. Zapdos arsed away in a final thunderclap, vanishing into storm fronts. Saffron smoldered in the aftermath, Team Rocket's dream of dominion shattered, admins fleeing into the ether. Yet whispers lingered, Giovanni's shadow pulling strings from afar, his legacy refusing to die. The fusion's failure only fueled darker ambitions, ones that would cloak themselves in mystery and rebirth. And that rebirth takes a chilling turn in the next chapter, the Masked Man and the Neo-Rocket era, where a figure shrouded in enigma rises to reclaim the flames. You won't believe who pulls the strings this time. Thufizur, that grotesque fusion of Articuno, Zapdos and Moltres, shattered under the relentless assault from Green and the protagonists, its electric feathers scattering like dying embers across the Johto skies. The Elite Four admins, LXT, Surge, Koga, Sabrina, scattered into the shadows, their dreams of unleashing avian Armageddon reduced to whispers in the wind. But as the dust settled over the ruins of their ambition, Team Rocket didn't crumble. No, it metastasized. From the smouldering remnants of the old guard rose a figure shrouded in enigma, a leader whose face no one had ever seen, whose voice cut through the chaos like a blade forged in the underworld. They called him the Masked Man, and under his command, the fractured syndicate reborn itself as Neo Team Rocket, a force unburdened by the executive's cautious hierarchies, driven purely by venomous hunger for supremacy. This wasn't Giovanni's calculated empire anymore. This was evolution, ruthless and unbound, where every grunt pledged not to a man, but to an ideal of total domination. Picture the underbelly of Johto transforming overnight. Abandoned warehouses in Mahogany Town pulsed with new life, their walls etched with the stark black R twisted into sharper, more predatory angles. The Masked Man's lieutenants, Car, the silver-haired strategist with eyes like polished steel, Ken, the unyielding enforcer whose fists crushed dissent before it formed, and Macy, the wildfire operative who reveled in the screams of captured Pokémon, enforced a doctrine of zero tolerance. Failures weren't forgiven, they were excised, their Pokémon repurposed as test subjects in labs that reeked of ozone and despair. Grunts whispered of the Masked Man's origins in terrified awe. Some said he was a spectre risen from Cinnabar's ashes, others that he was Giovanni's shadow self, purged of mercy. What mattered was his vision, one that turned Pokémon not just into weapons, but into gods chained to his will. And oh, how he bent the world to that purpose. The Masked Man delved into forbidden sciences, raiding ancient ruins beneath Ilex Forest and the Tin Tower, unearthing relics that hummed with temporal dissonance. He forged iron masks, artifacts pulsing with otherworldly energy, designed not merely to subdue, but to corrupt the very essence of legendary beings. Lugia, the guardian of the seas, whose wings could summon tempests to swallow fleets whole, felt the cold bite first. Dragged from the Whirl Island's abyssal depths, its psychic roars silenced as the mask clamped down, twisting its mind into a puppet of destruction. Ho! Oh, the rainbow phoenix of rebirth perched atop the bell tower, fared no better, its flames dimmed under the mask's grip, its song of renewal perverted into a dirge for annihilation. But the true horror lay in how the Masked Man wove time and space into his web. Those masks weren't simple restraints, they were conduits, channeling Lugia's diving pressure waves through rifts in reality, warping the fabric of Johto itself. Portals flickered open like wounds in the air, gaping voids that pulled in wild Pokémon by the hundreds, flinging them across timelines to fuel endless armies. Ho-Oh's sacred ash, once a symbol of resurrection, now rained down as a catalyst for monstrous evolutions, birthing hybrids that clawed through dimensions, their forms unstable and screaming. Labs deep underground thrummed with the machinery of apocalypse, vortex generators spinning at impossible speeds, clocks ticking backward as test subjects aged to dust or reverted to primal sludge. The Masked Man stood at the nexus, his porcelain visage impassive, orchestrating a symphony where every note pushed the Pokémon world closer to unraveling. Neo Team Rocket didn't stop at legends. They stormed the heart of human civilization, infiltrating Olivine City's lighthouse where Lugia's roars once echoed as warnings, now muffled commands for invasion fleets. In Ecrutec City, ghostly Marowak spirits stirred uneasily as Neo Grunts excavated bell tower foundations, unearthing crystals that amplified spatial distortions. The air grew thick with static, skies fracturing into kaleidoscopic shards where past and future bled together, visions of Red's silhouette flickering amid hordes of masked beasts. Car's strategies mapped these anomalies like chessboards, predicting surges to deploy swarms of Electrode, rigged with time bombs, detonations that looped seconds into eternity, trapping heroes in endless loops of torment. This was exploitation elevated to existential threat. The Neo movement stripped away all pretense of profit or subtlety. Pokémon weren't commodities here, they were fuel for a cataclysm. Vast breeding pits overflowed with forced hybrids, Lugia's psychic essence grafted onto Tauros herds that stampeded through wormholes, trampling villages in echoes from tomorrow. Ho-Oh's flames superheated reactors, melting mountains into slag rivers that poisoned the seas, birthing abominations that swam against the current of time itself. Johto teetered on the brink, the balance of nature fraying as rifts spewed anomalies. Pokémon from uncharted eras, rampaging unchecked, trainers vanishing into voids, the very stars above Goldenrod blinking out one by one. The masked man's endgame crystallized in those final hours, a ritual to fuse Lugia and Ho-Oh into a singular deity of judgment, one that would scour the world clean, remaking it in his image. Protagonists like Gold, Silver, and Crystal raced against this unraveling tapestry, their bonds with Pokémon the only tether to sanity amid the chaos. Silver, haunted by his father's legacy, confronted the masked man in the heart of the distortion, masks cracking under the strain of raw defiance. Yet even as the portals began to collapse, sealing the legend's fury back into dormancy, Neo Rocket's shadow lingered, its tendrils snaking into forbidden forests where time twisted anew. Whispers persist of a shimmering guardian, a Pokémon that dances between eras, holding the key to whether the masked man's apocalypse was truly averted or merely postponed. That story unfolds in Chapter 15, the Celaby connection, and trust me, the threads of time you think you understand are about to snap in ways that will keep you wide awake. As the dust settled from the masked man's desperate gambit to bend time and space around Lugia and Ho-Oh, a shadow loomed larger than any twisted fusion or phantom leader. Giovanni, the unbreakable architect of Team Rocket's empire, had been fighting a war no one saw coming, not against heroes or rivals, but against his own failing body. Deep within a secluded rocket outpost, far from the chaos of Johto's airwaves and shrines, Giovanni's health had crumbled in secrecy. Whispers among the highest elites hinted at it first. The boss who once commanded Persian with a flick of his wrist now battled waves of unrelenting pain that twisted his features in private. A terminal illness, rare and vicious, rooted in years of exposure to experimental energies, the same volatile forces that birthed Mewtwo and warped evolutions at Lake of Rage. Doctors, black market healers sourced from every shadowed corner of Kanto and Johto, offered nothing but grim timelines. Months, maybe less. Yet Giovanni refused to fade. He poured resources into forbidden leads, chasing rumors of supernatural cures whispered in ancient texts and poacher logs. Legends spoke of forest guardians who could rewrite fates, Pokémon that danced through timelines, pulling life from the brink. His search zeroed in on Ilex Forest, where time itself felt thin and a certain shrine pulsed with otherworldly light. You can almost feel the damp chill of that forest at midnight, can't you? Moss-slicked trees towering like silent sentinels, the air thick with the hum of unseen cicada, broken only by the faint rustle of leaves that shouldn't move. It was here that fate twisted toward Giovanni's salvation. A spiky-eared Pacio, that elusive variant with its jagged ear tufts marking it as a relic from distorted eras, had been sighted near the shrine. Not just any Pacio, this one carried an aura of temporal displacement, a Pokémon born from Celaby's wanderings through Johto's past. Young Ethan, the trainer who'd thwarted the radio tower coup, stumbled into this web unknowingly. His own Pacio, bonded through battles against rocket grunts, led him deeper into the shrine during a routine Celaby event. Celaby itself, the time-traveling myth cloaked in green psychic glow, appeared not as an enemy, but as a fleeting ally in the chaos. Picture the scene unfolding in those hushed animations from Pokémon generations. Celaby zips through vines and shadows, its tiny form trailing ribbons of warped time. It plucks rare herbs from pockets of accelerated growth, plants blooming years ahead or plucked from futures yet unwritten. The spiky-eared Pacio darts alongside, cheeks sparking with electric bursts that light the gloom, gathering berries infused with restorative essence only a time-displaced creature could sense. Ethan's Pacio joins the relay, cheeks flushing as it ferries the bundle back through Celaby's portals. These weren't ordinary remedies. They pulsed with chronal energy, capable of mending what science deemed irreparable. Word reached Giovanni through spies embedded in Ethan's path. Silver, his own son, conflicted and trailing the action, unwittingly confirmed the hall's potency. The package arrived at the outpost under cover of night, smuggled by a lone grunt who vanished into legend afterward. Giovanni's hidden struggle with a terminal illness and the search for a supernatural cure reached its zenith in that moment. He consumed the elixir alone, Persian at his side, growling low as convulsions racked his frame. The herbs coursed like liquid lightning, rewriting damaged cells, stabilizing the chaos radiation had sown in his veins. Days blurred into recovery haze, his empire holding by threads while executives like Archer awaited orders in uncertainty. But the true miracle lay in the synergy, the spiky-eared Pichu and the time-traveling Celaby anchoring the cure's power. Celaby's influence didn't just heal, it looped back, subtly altering probabilities, so Giovanni's path never fully ended. That Pichu variant tied to Heart Gold and Soul Silver's hidden events represented a bridge across eras, its spikes a badge of timelines Giovanni now owed his life to. Without their intervention, Team Rocket's founder would have been a footnote, his grand designs dust. Strength returned not gradually, but in a surge that sharpened every instinct. Giovanni emerged from seclusion, his gaze colder, his stride unyielding. Persian prowled at heel, mirroring the renewed ferocity. He summoned Archer first, the executive trembling as Giovanni's voice cut through the dim command room like a blade. No disbandment this time, no retreat like after Silph Co. Instead, a decree, rebuild, expand, evolve. The executives who'd filled the void, Archer, Ariana, Petrol, Proton, knelt in renewed fealty, their punishment swift for any lapse. Giovanni chose to resume his leadership right there, cured and more dangerous than ever, his illness a forge that tempered him into something unstoppable. Time itself had bent to his will, courtesy of Celaby's unwitting gift, making him not just a survivor, but a predator who now understood the fabric of eras. In the aftermath, Team Rocket's operations hummed with fresh menace. Clones stabilized, new mecha schematics drawn from temporal insights, and Giovanni's dual gaze as Viridian gym leader and syndicate overlord pierced deeper into global shadows. Silver's rejection stung but fueled the fire. The son walked away, but the father's empire endured, poised for horizons beyond Johto's lakes and towers. And what happens when this revitalized Giovanni sets his sights on the artificial island of Pacio, infiltrating its high-stakes tournaments to harvest ultra beasts and summon alternate tyrants? That's the intrigue waiting in Chapter 16, the Pacio infiltration. Stay with me as we uncover it all. With Giovanni's body restored by the ethereal touch of Celaby and the improbable gift of that spiky-eared Pichu, the rocket boss emerged from his shadows not weakened but hungrier than ever. His illness had been a mere interlude, a test of his unyielding will, and now, in the ever-shifting tapestry of Pokémon timelines, he set his sights on uncharted territories where the boundaries of worlds thinned like mist at dawn. Pacio stood as that tantalizing prize, an artificial island forged from human ambition, a glittering nexus in the Masters AX saga where trainers from every corner of the Pokémon multiverse converged. Picture the salty breeze whipping across its engineered shores, synthetic volcanoes rumbling faintly underfoot, and colossal stadiums rising like monuments to battles yet unfought. This wasn't some forgotten backwater. It was a crossroads of power, drawing champions, legends, and secrets from Kanto to Paldea. And Team Rocket, ever, the opportunists, saw it not as a playground for heroes, but a launchpad for conquest. Their expansion into Pacio unfolded with surgical precision, grunts slipping through customs like ghosts in the fog, executives posing as high-rolling investors in the island's lavish resorts. Giovanni didn't charge in with armies. He infiltrated, layer by layer, turning the island's own infrastructure against it. Hidden labs sprouted in abandoned warehouses along the neon-lit docks, where the hum of stolen machinery drowned out the distant roar of sync pairs clashing in arenas. They mapped every wormhole scar from past disturbances, every anomalous energy spike that hinted at rifts beyond our reality. Pacio's neutrality made it perfect. No regional governments to meddle, just a fragile web of alliances ripe for sabotage. But knowledge was their sharpest weapon, and Giovanni pursued it ruthlessly through the strategic purchase of Aether Foundation intel on ultra beasts and wormholes. Aether, those Alolan idealists with their pristine conservation labs, had catalogued the otherworldly invaders in excruciating detail. Buzzwole flexing its grotesque muscles through tears in the sky, Pheromosa darting like a living blade, Nihilago's tentacles pulsing with neurotoxic allure. They'd cracked the code on wormholes too, those unstable portals that bled extra-dimensional horrors into our world, documented in hushed reports from Luzamine's archives. For a fortune in untraceable credits, funneled through shell companies, Rocket acquired it all. Blueprints for stabilizing rifts, behavioral profiles of the beasts, even genetic samples smuggled in cryogenic vials. The deal went down in a Pacio back alley exchange, a hooded admin handing over data drives slick with encrypted firewalls, while Aether operatives walked away none the wiser, their coffers padded for conservation efforts. Armed with this forbidden law, Giovanni didn't stop at theft. He twisted it into ambition on a cosmic scale, recruiting alternate universe villains to forge a multi-dimensional threat that would eclipse anything Kanto or Johto had witnessed. From fractured timelines, he pulled shadows of familiar foes, Archie, but not the drowning zealot of Hoenn's seas. This version commanded a rampaging Kyogre that flooded horizons with primordial fury, its hydroblasts shattering Pacio's barriers like glass. There was Lysandra, his ultimate weapon, not a machine but a living inferno of Yveltal, eyes glowing with apocalyptic hunger. Even Maxi appeared, his Gruden stomping rifts wide open, earth quaking as if to swallow the island whole. These weren't allies bound by loyalty, they were summoned spectres, yanked through wormholes via Rocket's jury-rigged tech, bound by pacts of mutual destruction. Giovanni stood at the eye of this storm, Persian at his side, orchestrating from a commandeered penthouse overlooking the chaos, his voice a low growl over comms. Pacio falls, and through it, every world. Grunts swarmed the streets now, cloaked in holographic disguises mimicking sync pair trainers, their Pokémon laced with ultra beast essence for unnatural edges, Raticate with venomous barbs, Zubat swarms phasing through walls like Kartana. Alarms blared across the island as wormholes yawned open above central plazas, spewing cell-shaded horrors that clashed with heroes like Cynthia and Steven. Red himself warped in, Pikachu crackling with defiance, but Rocket's multiverse mercenaries turned the tide, Kyogre's waves crashing against mega evolutions, Gruden's eruptions burying escape routes. The air thickened with ozone and otherworldly shrieks, Pacio's artificial perfection cracking under the weight of realities colliding. Yet Giovanni's vision stretched further, the intel from Aether fueling devices that pulsed like captive hearts in subterranean bunkers. Ultra beasts weren't just weapons, they were keys to endless incursions, their captures promising armies that no Elite Four could repel. Trainers fled or fought, but Rocket's grip tightened, executives like Archer coordinating from mobile command zeppelins drifting above the fray. Silver's shadow lingered in rumors. Had the prodigal son caught wind, or was he lost in his own vendetta? The island trembled, a microcosm of Giovanni's dream. Total subjugation, worlds chained to his throne. As Pacio buckled under this onslaught, the true horror of their wormhole mastery began to unfold, pulling threads toward an even grander scheme. What started as infiltration metastasized into something cataclysmic, a project that would rip the fabric of existence wide open. You'll want to stay tuned for Chapter 17, the Ultra Wormhole project, where Giovanni's gambit unleashes forces that threaten every timeline at once. With that crucial intel from the Aether Foundation secured on Pacio's artificial shores, Team Rocket wasted no time transforming their foothold into a launchpad for catastrophe. They had the blueprints, the coordinates, the forbidden knowledge of interdimensional rifts, wormholes that pierced the veil between worlds. And right there, amid the neon glow of Pacio's stadiums and the crash of engineered waves, Giovanni's forces activated the Ultra Wormhole project. Picture the scene unfolding in the dead of night, hidden beneath the island's glittering arenas. Rocket engineers, cloaked in shadows, assemble hulking machines pieced together from pilfered aether prototypes. These weren't crude mechs or radio wave emitters from their Kanto days. This was technology born in Alola's labs, designed to harness the raw chaos of ultra space. Stolen outright during shadowy deals and infiltrations, the devices hum to life with an otherworldly whine, panels flickering purple as energy coils overload. Reality itself strains under the assault. A jagged tear splits the air, edges crackling like fractured glass, exhaling a frigid mist that smells of ozone and alien storms. Through these rifts pour the ultra beasts, those nightmarish invaders from beyond our universe. Nihilego drifts in first, its jellyfish form pulsing with neurotoxins that could enslave minds in seconds. Buzzwole flexes bulging arms, a beast of raw insectoid fury. Pheromosa glides like a blade, elegant and lethal. Kartana slices the wind, a living origami of death. Celesteela looms massive, vines coiling from its rocket-like body. Xerkitree's tendrils spark with electric hunger. Guzzlord rampages last, a black hole maw devouring everything in reach. Team Rocket's grunts swarm them not with Pokeballs alone, but with reinforced capture fields amplified by the wormhole energy itself, dragging these extra-dimensional horrors into submission. But capture was just the beginning. Giovanni saw in the Ultra Beasts not mere prizes for black market auctions, but weapons of unparalleled destruction. He envisioned deploying them against the world's champions, the elite trainers who had thwarted Rocket time and again, from Red on Mount Silver to the Sync Pair Masters of Pacio. Imagine Cynthia's Garchomp clashing with a rampaging Guzzlord, or Leon's Charizard overwhelmed by Celesteela's Meteor Descent. Rocket's labs buzzed with activity, scientists grafting control collars onto the beasts, fusing them with obedience serums derived from Aether's failed experiments. Test runs scarred Pacio's outskirts. A wormhole spits out Stakataka, stacking stone golems that pulverize training fields. Blacephalon explodes in psychedelic fireballs, turning mock battles into infernos. The project's ambition stretched further into the multiverse's tangled web. Wormholes didn't just summon beasts, they bridged realities. Rocket tech glitches open portals to alternate timelines, pulling in echoes of their own leaders twisted by darker fates. Archie surges through with a drowned Kyogre, waves crashing across Pacio's docks. Maxi emerges, Gruden at his side, cracking the earth. Even Lyssandra's ultimate weapon flickers into view. These summoned allies bolster Rocket's ranks, sharing tactics from worlds where villains triumphed. Grunts whisper of Giovanni's masterstroke, stabilizing these rifts for permanent gateways, allowing strikes anywhere, anytime. A raid on the Indigo League mid-tournament. An ambush in Galar's stadiums. No border, no league, no hero could predict the assault when it warped in from the void. You can feel the dread settling in, can't you? The Ultra Wormhole project elevated Team Rocket from regional thugs to cosmic predators. The use of stolen technology to tear open rifts in reality for the capture of alien Pokémon became their signature horror. Each portal a gamble with annihilation. Yet Giovanni pushed harder, fueling Team Rocket's attempt to weaponize the power of the Ultra Beasts against the world's champions, turning otherworldly rage into targeted Armageddon. And lurking beneath it all, the terrifying prospect of a syndicate that can strike from any point in the multiverse, a shadow slipping through dimensions, untouchable, unstoppable. Champions fought back on Pacio, sync pairs clashing in desperate syncs to seal the rifts. Red arrived with his Pikachu, a thunderbolt shattering a wormhole generator. Blue coordinated with Cynthia, their teams holding the line as Ultra Beasts rampaged. Even former foes like Archie turned, realities colliding in chaotic betrayal. Giovanni watched from his command ship, teleporter humming at his belt as explosions lit the horizon. One by one, the portals winked shut, beasts recalled or scattered. But Rocket vanished into the ether, machines dismantled, intel scrubbed, leaving only scorched earth and a chilling promise. This was no defeat, just a recalibration. Whispers spread through the shadows of other regions, hints of Rocket grunts mobilizing under new guises, eyes fixed on everyday battles turned invasion. What happens when their wormhole tech infiltrates the augmented reality of Pokémon Go, turning wild encounters into full-scale war? That's the chaos waiting in Chapter 18. The Pokémon Go invasions stick around, because the hunt for Mewtwo's shadows is about to explode into your world. As those unstable rifts from the Ultra Wormhole project began to seal themselves, sealing away the rampaging Ultra Beasts and thwarting Team Rocket's bid to unleash them on the champions of Pacio, Giovanni's syndicate didn't retreat into the shadows. They adapted, evolving their tactics for a war that would spill out from hidden labs into the streets of every city on Earth. In the mobile battleground of Pokémon Go, where trainers hunt creatures through their screens in the real world, Team Rocket struck with a precision invasion, transforming everyday Pokestops into contested zones of chaos. Picture the scene unfolding across the globe, black-clad operatives materializing at gyms and stops, their presence announced by a sinister hiss from your phone. These weren't the bumbling trio from the anime or the elite executives of old Kanto hideouts. No, this was Team Go Rocket, a rebranded force hardened by years of defeats, deploying grunts in waves that swarmed every continent. You'd approach a familiar landmark, a park bench in New York, a fountain in Tokyo, a quiet alley in London, and there they'd be, taunting you with their shadowed Pokémon, daring you to battle for control. But the grunts were just the vanguard. Lurking behind them, ready to escalate any prolonged resistance, were the leaders Cliff, with his brooding intensity and earth-shaking forces, Sierra, her strategies laced with icy precision and venomous strikes, and Arlo, the sleek tactician whose teams dripped with dark elegance and overwhelming firepower. Cliff might greet you with a gravelly whisper about crushing dreams underfoot, his mudkip evolving into a rampaging swampert. Sierra's battles unfold like a venomous dance, her Carvania snapping at heels before morphing into the abyssal Sharpedo. Arlo, ever the charmer, unleashes a pristine Trapinch that burrows into a tyrannical Flygon, dominating the skies. Defeating a grunt clears the stop temporarily, but victory against a leader demands everything you've got, their lineups shifting unpredictably, forcing trainers worldwide to grind for counters day and night. What made this invasion so insidious wasn't just the numbers, it was the corruption at its core. Team Rocket had perfected a new brand of cruelty, the Shadow Pokémon. These weren't mere captures, they were perversions of nature itself. Grunts and leaders snatch wild Pokémon straight from your encounters, then subject them to a harrowing process, suppressing their very hearts. You see it in the animations, the dark aura pulsing around them, their eyes glowing with suppressed rage. Giovanni's scientists, drawing from the same unethical experiments that birthed Mewtwo and irradiated the Lake of Rage, had devised a device, a pulsating purple core that crushes the emotional bond Pokémon share with the world. Hearts torn out metaphorically, leaving only primal fury and boosted power, but at a cost. Shadow Pokémon lash out wildly in battle, their attacks amplified by torment, CP ratings spiking unnaturally high. Trainers who manage to defeat the invaders claim these broken creatures, but purification becomes a ritual of redemption, feeding them berries and battling in special arenas to coax back that suppressed spark of joy. This wasn't confined to one region or a single failed heist. The Pokémon Go invasion exploded on a global scale, hot air balloons drifting silently over skylines from Sydney to São Paulo, Moscow to Mexico City. These weren't quaint festival rides, they were mobile command centers, emblazoned with Rocket's crimson R, hovering above population centers as airborne Pokestops. Grunts rappel down from gondolas, leaders coordinating strikes from the wicker decks, their balloons blotting out the sun like omens of conquest. You'd look up during a stroll and spot one, engines humming faintly, dropping invasion alerts that ripple through the trainer network. In rural fields of Iowa or atop the Eiffel Tower, these floating fortresses enabled hit-and-run operations, striking high-traffic areas before vanishing into the clouds, forcing defenders to chase shadows across time zones. The strategy was brilliant in its simplicity, echoing Giovanni's old Silph Co. takeover but amplified for the digital age. Every purified shadow Pokémon handed trainers a rocket radar, a scanner to track those balloons, turning the hunt into a worldwide cat-and-mouse game. Communities formed overnight, Discord servers buzzing in a dozen languages, raid groups pivoting from legendaries to leader takedowns. Yet Team Rocket thrived on the disruption, their economy booming from stolen resources, each battle funneling energy back to some unseen central hub. Reports trickled in of rare shadows like the ferocious Tyranitar or the spectral Dusknoir, hints that Giovanni himself oversaw the heart suppression tech, refining it from Mewtwo's psychic imprints. Trainers pushed back, but the invasion lingered, a persistent stain on the Go world. Balloons still sighted sporadically, grunts respawning with fresh taunts, leaders rotating teams to keep everyone guessing. Cliff's gravelly voice might boom through your speaker one day, Sierra's cool challenge the next, Arlo's suave threats sealing the night. It was Team Rocket's most pervasive campaign yet, proving they could corrupt the joy of the hunt itself, one suppressed heart at a time. And as the skies cleared over some cities, whispers emerged of a bolder gambit, a return to the origins of their greatest creation. In Chapter 19, The Return to Mewtwo's Island, we uncover how Giovanni set his sights back on the cloned legend that once raised his own labs, risking everything for a psychic apocalypse that could rewrite the skies forever. What drove him there, and what shadows await on that forsaken rock? Stay with me as we descend into the storm. As the shadow of Team Go Rocket's grunts lengthened across parks and battlefields, with leaders like Cliff, Sierra, and Arlo twisting Pokémon hearts into obedient weapons, the organization's hunger for true supremacy pulled them back to an ancient grudge. Mewtwo, the cloned legend born from Giovanni's forbidden labs on Cinnabar Island, had long evaded their grasp, its psychic fury shattering the facility where it awoke to betrayal and loss. Now, in the shadowed timelines blending Pokémon Go's digital incursions with the raw terror of Mewtwo Strikes Back, Team Rocket launched their boldest reclamation yet. Domino, the Black Tulip herself, that icy elite agent with a flair for precision strikes, assembled her hand-picked unit for the assault. No mere grunts this time. These were operatives honed in the arts of containment fields and neural suppressants, veterans of wormhole raids and legendary hunts. Their target loomed larger than any Ultra Beast, the world's most powerful psychic Pokémon, Mewtwo, guardian of its cloned kin, on a storm-lashed island far from human eyes. Whispers from old rocket archives had pinpointed the location, that forsaken rock in the sea, once a cradle of genetic miracles, now a psychic fortress pulsing with untamed power. Picture the chop of helicopter blades slicing through salt-heavy fog as Domino's squad descended. The air hummed with the low throb of portable generators, their cargo bays spilling forth crates of gleaming tech, psychic dampeners forged from Silph Co, remnants, reinforced Master Ball variants laced with Mewtwo's own clone DNA signatures. They weren't just here to capture, they aimed to conquer the cradle of Rocket's greatest creation. Night after night, under cloaks of fabricated storms, they carved into the island's heart. Bulldozers hummed like distant thunder, excavating the cavernous chambers where Mewtwo had once slumbered in embryonic rage. The construction of a high-tech base directly within Mewtwo's former sanctuary unfolded with ruthless efficiency. Titanium struts pierced the volcanic rock, anchoring a sprawling complex that spied a web through the mountain's veins. Holographic command centers flickered to life, walls lined with neural scanners and evolution accelerators, echoes of the Lake of Rage experiments, but amplified for a god. Containment pods, vast and crystalline, awaited the clones, the armored Mewtwo, the blade-wielding one, each a twisted reflection of their progenitor. Domino paced the central bridge, her voice a silken whip over comms, directing fusion reactors to power psychic nullifiers. The island, once a symphony of wild winds and echoing cries, now reeked of ozone and molten steel, its sacred caves violated by floodlights that banished every shadow. Mewtwo sensed the intrusion from miles away, its mind a vast ocean rippling with fury. Telepathic probes slithered through the ether, brushing against the intruder's thoughts, dreams of profit, visions of Giovanni's throne rebuilt on psychic might. The clones stirred in their hidden grottos, eyes glowing like fractured amethysts, drawn to their father's call. As the base neared completion, alarms wailed through the corridors. Domino's unit mobilized phalanxes of rocket soldiers in hazard suits, deploying drone swarms laced with sedative gas. Energy barriers snapped into place, sealing the sanctuary's core. The final confrontation erupted in the base's throbbing heart. Mewtwo materialized in a vortex of violet energy, its form towering, tail lashing like a living whip. Psychic waves shattered consoles, hurling technicians into walls with bone-crunching force. Domino stood defiant, activating the Master Dampener, a colossal ring pulsing with stolen legend energy. Mewtwo's eyes narrowed, probing her mind, unraveling secrets of past failures. The Silph Co. Rout, the goldenrod collapse. Clones flanked their sire, barriers cracking under combined assault. Soldiers fired neural darts, but Mewtwo's shield turned them to harmless sparks. In that maelstrom, Mewtwo unleashed its ultimate mercy. A psychic surge, pure and overwhelming, flooded every mind in the base. Memories unraveled like smoke, faces of loved ones, orders from on high, the very scent of the sea air, all erased in a blink. Domino staggered, her elite composure fracturing as blankness claimed her. The army collapsed in unison, puppets with cut strings, their invasion reduced to forgotten echoes. Mewtwo hovered above, gaze lingering on the desecrated sanctuary, then with a final teleportation pulse, banished the husks to distant shores, base intact but minds wiped clean to protect its kind forever. This clash etched a scar across Rocket's ambitions, a reminder that some powers defy even their creators. Yet Giovanni's shadow lingered, plotting from afar. But while these elite shadows waged war on legends, a far more chaotic force bubbled up from the organization's comedic underbelly, a trio whose bungled schemes would redefine Rocket's face in the anime chronicles. Up next, the anime trio, Jessie, James, and Meowth, where loyalty meets absurdity in the most unforgettable ways. I hope you're as amazed by this as I am. If you want to stay updated on more content like this, make sure to subscribe and join our community of curious minds. Trust me, what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew. While Team Rocket's elite operatives like Domino chase psychic legends in shadowed laboratories, the organization's most enduring faces emerge from the anime's chaotic spotlight, where incompetence masks something far more profound. These aren't just bumbling thieves blasting off into the sky. They're the grunts who humanize the Syndicate's relentless shadow across decades of episodes. In the sprawling tapestry of the Pokémon anime, Jessie, James, and Meowth form an unbreakable trio, forever scheming to snatch Ash's Pikachu under Giovanni's distant gaze. Their motto rings out like a warped anthem before every doomed heist: prepare for trouble and make it double. Yet beneath the theatrics and explosions lies the surprising depth and tragic backstories of the most famous grunts in history. These three aren't faceless fodder, they're survivors forged in personal hells, their loyalty to Team Rocket born not from blind ambition, but from lives that left them with nowhere else to turn. Jessie's story begins in the grimy underbelly of a forgotten corner of Kanto, where poverty clawed at her every step. Orphaned young, she scraped by in foster homes that offered cold walls instead of warmth, her dreams of stardom flickering like a faulty bike light. She poured her heart into nursing school, envisioning a life of care and stability, only to flunk out amid the pressure, her grades crumbling under the weight of cheap instant noodles and endless night shifts. Undeterred, she chased the stage, auditioning for idol groups with a voice that echoed her unyielding fire. Rejections piled up like discarded scripts, too tall, too fierce, never quite polished enough. Starvation loomed as she joined biker gangs, her pink hair a defiant banner against the world that kept pushing her down. Team Rocket became her last stage, a place where failure meant laughter instead of despair. Jessie's failed dreams of stardom and James's escape from an oppressive aristocratic life binding them in shared rebellion. James, by contrast, fled a gilded cage that choked tighter than any Pokeball. Born into old money, in a sprawling mansion lined with butlers and priceless heirlooms, his childhood drowned in expectation. Arranged marriage to a nightmare of a fiancée, Jessie Bell whip in hand. Her cruelty a twisted echo of high society pushed him to the brink. He bolted with Growlithe in tow, trading silk sheets for the open road, his collection of rare bottle caps a quirky rebellion against the suffocating wealth. Team Rocket offered freedom, a uniform that hid his polished accent, and missions where his flair for the dramatic finally fit. Together with Jessie, their schemes unfolded in glittering disguises and over-the-top gadgets, but every blast-off hid the scars of those escapes. Then there's Meowth, the scratching post at the heart of it all, whose purr hides a wound deeper than any claw mark. Abandoned as a kitten on the streets of Hollywood, a bustling dream factory far from Kanto's gyms, he watched humans lavish affection on pampered Persians while he scavenged for scraps. Desperation ignited genius. He taught himself human speech, mimicking words from alleyway radios and theatre marquees, his tiny voice cracking with hope. Meowth, that's right, became his battle cry, but it started as a plea. He fell for a female Meowth named Meowsy, showering her with stolen coins and fish, only to learn her love demanded he become human-like. Heartbroken when she rejected his scrappy charm for a Persian swagger, Meowth wandered broken, his unique ability to speak, born from a desperate need for love and acceptance, twisting into a curse of isolation. Team Rocket scooped him up, offering purpose in translation and schemes, his Brooklyn accent a badge of hard-won humanity. Their failures are legendary, Mecca exploding in fireballs, Pikachu's thunderbolt sending them skyward with a twinkling star, yet Giovanni keeps them around, their reports filtering through Cassidian's desk amid the boss's grander plots. In episodes stretching from Kanto's forests to Sinnoh's peaks, they evolve subtly, Jessie's contest aspirations blooming into real ribbons, James's tenderness nurturing Chimecho and Mime Jr., Meowth's gadgets sparking unlikely alliances. They clash with Ash not out of pure malice, but a warped camaraderie, their backstories flashing in rare flashbacks that peel back the comedy to reveal fractured souls. These grunts infiltrate regions where games dare not tread, disguising as schoolgirls in Johto or twerks in Kalos, their motto adapting like a persistent virus. They blast off but always return, embodying Team Rocket's immortality. Giovanni values their persistence, even as elites like Archer scheme in Shadows. The trio's chaos distracts heroes while real threats brew. Their depth ripples outward, humanizing the Syndicate's terror. Fans latch onto bottle episodes where Jessie's temper flares over bad hair days or James weeps for lost Pokémon, turning villains into anti-heroes. In crossovers like Masters EX, they pop up with winking schemes, proving their grip on the lore. But as their personal sagas weave through the anime's endless chases, whispers emerge of the mechanical monstrosities they pilot, inventions straight from Giovanni's twisted labs. Next, in Chapter 21, the Mecca and the Mastermind uncover how these clunky behemoths nearly toppled champions and the genius pulling their strings. What unholy fusion of tech and tyranny almost rewrote the Pokémon world forever. Despite their heartbreaking origins, Jessie, James and Meowth never wavered in their devotion to Team Rocket's shadowy empire, channeling every ounce of that loyalty into pursuits that defined their chaotic legacy. Giovanni himself recognized their potential, not as elite operatives, but as the perfect foot soldiers in his grander designs, funneling resources into their hands that could bankrupt lesser organizations. Picture the sheer audacity. A single Pikachu, That spiky-eared yellow spark belonging to a 10-year-old boy from Pallet Town became the obsession that justified fleets of colossal war machines. These weren't mere toys or slapdash contraptions. They were engineering marvels straight out of Giovanni's black market war chest, each one a testament to the massive financial investment poured into capturing Ash's Pikachu. We're talking giant robots towering over forests, their hydraulic limbs gleaming under Kanto's sun, powered by rare Pokémon-derived energy cells that cost fortunes on the underground auctions. One episode alone saw them deploy the Yamask mech, a hulking submarine disguised as a floating mask, equipped with tentacles that could ensnare a stadium full of trainers, all for that one elusive rodent. And the failures? Spectacular. Pikachu's thunderbolt would arc through the air like a lightning storm from the gods, short-circuiting servos and sending the entire apparatus plummeting into the earth with a thunderous crash, Jessie screaming as she blasted off yet again. But here's the raw contrast that makes their story so gripping. Amid these comedic failures, exploding balloons, shaped like Arbok or Wobbuffet, bikes that morphed into jet engines only to sputter and spin out of control, gadgets that backfired with confetti and smoke, their unwavering loyalty to Giovanni burned brighter than any plasma torch. Episode after episode, they'd regroup in some dingy hideout, bruised and bandaged, reciting their motto with theatrical flair, prepare for trouble and make it double. James would strike a pose, rose in hand, while Meowth translated their reports back to the boss. Giovanni, from his saffron skyscraper throne, would growl over the video feed, "You idiots. That Pikachu was mine." Yet, they'd salute, eyes gleaming with fanaticism, vowing to return stronger. No matter how many times they cratered into the horizon, stars circling their heads, they crawled back, driven by a bond forged in shared desperation and Giovanni's iron promise of glory. That promise wasn't cheap. The massive financial investment in giant robots and gadgets used to pursue Ash's Pikachu drained coffers, filled by slowpoke tail sales and Silph Co. tech heists. Yet Giovanni kept the credits flowing. Custom mechs like the Dustox drone swarm or the Seviper drill tank rolled off assembly lines in hidden Viridian factories, each packed with laser arrays, cryogenic freezers for live captures, and AI cores scripted by rocket engineers to outmaneuver any twerp. One standout was the Arbok battlesuit, a serpentine exoskeleton that slithered through Viridian forest, jaws unhinging to swallow prey whole, only for Pikachu to quick attack its weak point, reducing it to molten scrap in seconds. The trio's motto would echo as debris rained down, Team Rockets blasting off again. Comedic gold for viewers, but a bottomless pit for Giovanni's accountants. What few realised, though, is how the trio inadvertently served as a distraction for Team Rocket's more serious operations. While Jessie, James, and Meowth tangled with Ash in roadside ambushes, drawing the spotlight with their fireworks and fanfare, the real machinery of crime hummed in the shadows. Grunts swarmed Mount Moon, spiking fossils with evolution serums that twisted Helix and Dome into abominations. Executives like Proton orchestrated the Pokémon Tower hauntings, where that murdered Marowak's ghost wailed over experimental vats bubbling with illicit brews. The trio's endless Pikachu chasers kept Ash Ketchum, and by extension, the League's prying eyes pinned down in comedic skirmishes, buying precious hours for the Silph Co. takeover. Massive warp panels flickered to life in Saffron's boardrooms, master balls rolling off hijacked lines, all while James's latest hover tank sputtered overhead, exploding harmlessly in the distance. This duality ran deep through every region they infested. In Johto, as Archer and his execs jammed radio waves into Lake of Rage, forcing Gyarados into berserk red scales, the trio buzzed around Goldenrod in a talking Meowth balloon, nets flailing for Pikachu amid the chaos. Their loyalty blinded them to the bigger play. They'd chatter about Giovanni's return, unaware their bungled heists masked the legendary bird hunts, LT. Surge zapping Zapdos from a storm cloud, Koga's poisons lulling Articuno into nets. Mewtwo's cloning labs on Cinnabar churned in secrecy, Dr. Fuji's tanks glowing with stolen life, while the trio's latest gadget, a Pikachu magnetizing satellite, crashed into the sea, drawing ash away from the real psychic storm brewing. Even in later timelines, this pattern held. Masters EX saw wormholes tear open on Pacio, Ultra Beasts spilling through, yet the trio's spirit echoed in grunt deployments, their mecha blueprints repurposed for shadow raids. Pokémon Go grunts corrupted hearts into shadowed fury under Cliff and Sierra, but the anime's legacy of loyal failure provided the perfect smokescreen, flashy, forgettable, eternally recurring. Giovanni watched from afar, perhaps smirking at the irony. His most expendable agents, bankrolled beyond reason, kept the world's heroes chasing shadows while his empire clawed at the stars. Their mecha madness peaked in monstrosities like the Lugia submersible or the Regirock Stomper, each a symphony of whirring gears and hissing pneumatics, funded by black market Persian trades and fossil rackets. Explosions lit the night sky over Cerulean, chunks of metal raining into the cape like fallen meteors, Jessie clutching her hair in despair as Pikachu zipped away unscathed. Yet they'd rise, motto on lips, reporting in with Meowth's scratchy New York accent, relaying every detail to the mastermind. That loyalty, unbreakable, a flame Giovanni stoked with threats and rare praises, turning personal tragedies into organizational fuel. And as their distractions wove through the lore, enabling everything from Mewtwo's rage-fueled rampage to the Goldenrod Coup's airwave tyranny, one scheme loomed larger, pulling at the fabric of creation itself. In Chapter 22, The Arceus Manipulation, you'll uncover how Team Rocket dared to bend the god of Pokémon to their will, what twisted badges and betrayals made it possible, and why it threatened to rewrite reality forever. Stay with me as the shadows deepen, while the anime trio funneled endless Giovanni-backed fortunes into those clunky mecha monstrosities. All in a futile chase for one electric mouse, the boss himself was scheming on a scale that dwarfed their slapstick failures. Deep within the shadowed halls of Team Rocket's hidden sanctuaries, Giovanni turned his gaze to the ultimate prize, Arceus, the god of Pokémon itself. You can almost feel the hum of forbidden machinery in those underground lairs where flickering holographic displays cast an otherworldly glow on the faces of the executives. This wasn't about petty thefts or shadow Pokémon anymore. No, this was the ambitious plot to manipulate the god of Pokémon into creating new legendary entities, forging an army of myth made real to bend the world to Rocket's will. In the pages of the Pokémon Adventures manga, the Syndicate's admins Archer, Ariana, Petrel and Proton had been dispatched across regions, hunting down the plates of Arceus, those ancient artifacts said to embody the very essence of creation. Each plate, shimmering with elemental power, was a key to unlocking Arceus's dormant might. Picture the tension building as they pieced it together. Reports filtered back from Johto's ruins and Sinnoh's peaks, a plate of fire unearthed from a volcanic crater, its edges still warm with latent fury, another of pure steel, pried from the jaws of a guardian Registeel. Giovanni's vision was crystalline. He'd force Arceus into a ritual, channeling its alpha energy through a colossal amplifier built from Silph Co. His pilfered tech and Mewtwo's cloned psychic residue. The god would birth new legendaries, loyal only to him, beasts of shadow and storm, dragons woven from nightmare ether, entities that could shatter gyms, topple champions, and rewrite the fabric of Pokémon battles. Grunts whispered about prototypes already stirring in cryopods, their eyes glowing with unnatural hunger, scales rippling like living voids. But ambition like that breeds cracks in even the tightest hierarchies. As the plates accumulated in a vault beneath the Rocket Casino, disguised as a glittering tourist trap in Celadon, the executives began to fracture. Ariana pushed for immediate deployment, her voice a venomous hiss in strategy meetings, arguing the new legends could crush Lance's elite four remnants. Proton tinkered obsessively with the amplifier, his fingers stained black from experimental surges that fried lesser Pokémon on contact. Archer, ever the strategist, mapped invasion routes across Kanto and beyond. And then there was Petrol, the master of disguise, whose loyalties started to waver under the weight of it all. Petrol's attempted betrayal of Giovanni and the internal power struggles of the syndicate simmered like a fuse in a powder keg. He'd always been the slippery one, mimicking voices and faces to infiltrate rival groups, but now he saw Giovanni's absences, those prolonged trainings after Silph Co, as weakness. Whispers spread among mid-level commanders, "Why bow to a ghost when we hold the plates?" Petrol floated the idea in shadowed briefings, his face shifting between allies' features to sow doubt. He proposed a coup, claiming a fabricated Giovanni directive to redistribute power, funneling the Arceus tech to a splinter faction. Grunts defected quietly, shipments of plates rerouted to hidden caches in Mahogany Town. Ariana caught wind and confronted him in a chamber lit only by the god plate's eerie pulse, her arbok coiling threateningly as accusations flew. Fights broke out in the lower levels, Pokémon unleashed in brutal skirmishes, corridors scarred by hyper beams and poison stings. The syndicate teetered, executives turning on each other, loyalties bought with promises of shares in the new legends. The air grew thick with betrayal's stench, ozone from malfunctioning devices mixing with the metallic tang of spilled blood from human handlers caught in the crossfire. Petrol nearly pulled it off, rallying a third of the forces with forged holograms of Giovanni's abdication. He stood in the amplifier chamber, plates arranged in a perfect wheel around the central dais, ready to activate without the boss. The machine whirred to life, arcs of multicolored energy lancing out, and for a heartbeat, the fabric of reality thinned, shadows coalesced into half-formed legendaries, roaring with primordial rage. That's when Giovanni struck. Not with an army, not with mecha or grunts, but with a display of absolute authority in reclaiming control over his fractured empire that left no room for doubt. He materialized in the chamber's heart via a personal teleporter, Mewtwo's psychic signature woven into its core, his Persian at his side with eyes like sharpened obsidian. The air pressure dropped as his presence alone quelled the chaos. Executives froze, Petrol's disguise melting away under Giovanni's piercing stare. "You think you can wield a god without me?" His voice cut through the din like a thunderbolt, calm yet laced with the promise of annihilation. In seconds, Persian lunged, pinning Petrol with claws that drew thin lines of crimson. The half-born legends dissipated as Giovanni seized a master plate, slamming it into the amplifier's core. The machine screamed, plates shattering in a cascade of light that seared retinas and felled traitors where they stood. Ariana and the loyalists knelt instantly, protons scrambling to shut down the overload. Giovanni didn't raise his voice again. He simply outlined the new order. Petrol demoted to grunt patrol in the deepest mines, his face branded with a failure tattoo, visible only under black light. Executives who wavered faced reconditioning in Cinnabar's rebuilt labs. The Empire realigned under his shadow, plates reclaimed, the Arceus ritual postponed but perfected in secrecy. Grunts emerged from the ordeal with a renewed fanaticism, tales of that night spreading like wildfire through the ranks. Giovanni's return wasn't just a reclamation, it was a reminder that he was the Syndicate's gravity, pulling all orbits back into line. The god of Pokémon remained his to command, its power simmering for the day he'd unleash it fully. But even gods have their limits, and the methods Giovanni employed to bend them, well, those dive straight into the science of cruelty waiting for us next. While Petrol's betrayal simmered in the undercurrents of Team Rocket's endless power games, the real venom coursed through their hidden laboratories, where scientists forged weapons not of steel, but of shattered wills. These weren't mere gadgets for theft, they were abominations born from a ruthless quest to dominate Pokémon at their core. Deep beneath the Rocket hideout in Mahogany Town, amid humming generators and the acrid tang of ionized air, engineers perfected the evolution ray, a pulsating beam of artificial radiation designed to wrench Pokémon from their natural growth cycles. Picture a Magikarp thrashing in a containment tank at Lake of Rage, its scales rippling under waves of distorted radio signals broadcast from a towering antenna. Normally these fish Pokémon slumbered for years before ascending to Gyarados form, but Rocket's tech slashed that timeline to minutes, flooding their bodies with mutagenic energy that triggered explosive metamorphoses. The result? A colossal red Gyarados rampaging through the lake's misty waters, its roar echoing like thunder over the midnight shore, a testament to their ability to hijack evolution itself. This wasn't innovation for progress, it was cruelty codified, forcing creatures into forms they weren't ready for, their minds fracturing under the strain. Earlier still, in the fossil-dusted caverns of Mount Moon, a Team Rocket admin unveiled a precursor, a shimmering purple potion distilled from rare minerals and unstable isotopes injected directly into captured Pokémon. A Clefairy, meant to evolve gracefully under moonlight, convulsed as the serum burned through its veins, sprouting wings prematurely in a haze of unnatural light. The air grew thick with the scent of scorched stone and panicked cries, alerting any trainer bold enough to venture deep. These rays and serums weren't accidents. They were Rocket's blueprint for mass production, turning wild Pokémon into obedient soldiers overnight. But the true horror lurked in their mind control arsenal, devices that stripped away free will like peeling back fragile skin. The mind control armor, a sleek exosuit of neural amplifiers and psychic dampeners, clamped onto a Pokémon's body like a second skeleton. In the dim glow of Silph Co. is hijacked R&D floors. Technicians fitted prototypes onto test subjects, Rattata twitching as electrode-studded plates synced to their brainwaves, overriding instincts with cold commands. The armor pulsed with violet energy, synapses firing in unison to the wearer's orders, turning loyal companions into puppets. No battle cry, no hesitation, just mechanical precision, eyes glazing over with enforced vacancy. At the heart of this ethical abyss sat the Rocket Ball, a perversion of the Pokeball technology stolen from Silph's vaults. Unlike standard spheres that bonded through mutual trust, this crimson orb, etched with suppression runes and laced with psychoactive nanites, bypassed consent entirely. Lobbed at a fleeing Pidgey, it expanded mid-air with a sinister hiss, tendrils of energy lancing out to seize the mind before the body. Inside, the Pokémon didn't rest in stasis. It drowned in a psychic fog. Willpower eroded until loyalty to Rocket became its only reality. Ethics. Giovanni's scientists dismissed them as weaknesses for the weak. Why negotiate with a beast spirit when you could reprogram it? Trainers who recovered these victims spoke of hollow stares, Pokémon flinching at shadows, their once vibrant auras dimmed to echoes. It raised a chilling question. If you can own a soul without asking, what remains of partnership? These weren't isolated experiments. Rocket's labs churned out variations, helmets for psychic domination, collars pulsing obedience frequencies, even airborne mists that blanketed forests, subjugating herds in seconds. The Cinnabar cloning facility took it further, duplicating Mew's genetic code in vats bubbling with synthetic amniotic fluid, birthing Mewtwo not as a miracle, but a rage-fueled weapon whose escape left the island scarred with psychic craters. Every failure fueled refinement, every success a step toward an army of the enthralled. Their research didn't die with defeats, it seeded the fields of future darkness. Team Galactic, with their grand designs on Dialga and Palkia, echoed Rocket's temporal distortions in those evolution rays, twisting time itself for forced ascensions. Team Flare's ultimate weapon? A refinement of the neural suppression tech, channeling life energy through mind-locked Pokémon to reshape the world. Rocket's cruelty wasn't just theirs, it was the prototype. Whispered blueprints traded in shadowed networks, ensuring villainy evolved long after Giovanni's shadow faded. As these technologies filtered into the underworld, they birthed a sprawling empire of illicit trade, where Pokémon became currency and secrets flowed like black market gold. That empire unfolds next in Chapter 24, the global black market, where you'll uncover how Rocket's harvest of tales, fossils and forbidden evolutions fueled a hidden economy that still pulses today. While those twisted inventions like the rocket ball and evolution rays pushed the boundaries of Pokémon control, the real engine keeping Team Rocket's machine oiled was something far more shadowy, a sprawling global black market that funneled billions into their coffers. Picture the docks of Vermilion City at midnight, where crates stamped with innocent shipping labels hide slowpoke tails severed fresh from Azalea Town, destined for high-end restaurants in distant regions where the rich pay fortunes for that rare delicacy. Team Rocket didn't just steal Pokémon, they commodified every part, every power, turning Kanto and Johto's natural wonders into currency. Analyzing the economic impact of Team Rocket's smuggling rings across Kanto and Johto reveals a syndicate that siphoned resources on an industrial scale, crippling local economies while padding their own. In Kanto Mount, Moon's fossils vanished by the truckload, depriving museums and researchers of evolutionary gold mines worth millions in study grants alone. Johto fared no better. Those slowpoke tails weren't a one-off. They were harvested in cycles, disrupting river ecosystems and forcing fishermen out of work as prices plummeted for legal catches. Rare candies smuggled from shadowy labs flooded underground markets, undercutting legitimate breeders and sparking a black market boom that saw counterfeit Pokeballs peddled from saffron back alleys. Giovanni's vision turned Pokémon into products. A stolen Porygon here could fetch enough to fund a month's worth of grunt salaries, while experimental evolutions from Lake of Rage experiments were auctioned to warlords in far-off lands, destabilizing trade routes from Olivine Port to beyond. This wasn't haphazard theft, it was a calculated web, with smuggling rings threading through every port and cave system. Grunts posing as merchants loaded sandshrew hides for armor sales in Celio City, while executives oversaw helicopter drops of moonstones into Johto's forests, evading patrols with bribes and diversions. The ripple effects hit hard. Kanto's berry farms withered as smuggled lumberries undercut prices, leaving honest growers bankrupt, their families scraping by on handouts. Johto's silk producers in Ikrutak watched their markets collapse under waves of stolen string shot from captured Ariados, funneled through hidden warehouses. Team Rocket's take? Estimates whisper tens of millions per operation cycle, laundered not into thin air, but into legitimate fronts that masked the blood money. The underground casinos and front businesses used to launder money for the syndicate, formed the glittering facade over this rot. Celadon's Game Corner wasn't just a gambler's den, it was Rocket's masterpiece, a neon-lit labyrinth where tourists wagered coins on slots rigged just enough to bleed them dry, the proceeds vanishing into secret elevators leading to poster hideouts stacked with smuggled goods. Beneath the flashing lights and cheering crowds, Ariana's teams tallied wins that equaled laundered slowpoke profits, each jackpot a clean transfer to Giovanni's accounts. Across Johto, goldenrod's facade shops, perfumeries and trinket stores by day doubled as drop points, their shelves hiding compartments for black market gems pried from unknown ruins. These weren't isolated spots. Rocket's network spanned legitimate enterprises tainted at the core. Giovanni's Viridian Gym pulled in trainers' fees, a perfect cover for funneling fossil sales through training equipment exports. Celadon Department Store, with its endless aisles of Poké dolls and luxury items, washed millions via inflated invoices, the excess shipped to offshore buyers. In Johto, mahogany souvenir shops peddled authentic Lake of Rage, scales from those forced evolutions, turning Rampage into revenue. Underground casinos popped up in basements from Saffron to Ecrutake, velvet-roped dens where elites bet on Pokémon battles streamed from hidden arenas, the house always winning big enough to cleanse the smuggling hall. One big night at a goldenrod speakeasy could legitimize a month's tail harvest, the chips cashed out as winnings deposited in plain sight. None of this empire endured without deep roots in power. The corruption of local officials that allowed the organization to flourish for decades ran like veins through Kanto and Johto's halls of authority. Gym leaders like Giovanni wore two faces, one battling badges, the other signing off on research permits for Mewtwo labs. Saffron's police turned blind eyes for envelopes thick with laundered casino cash, their reports burying rocket sightings under paperwork avalanches. In Johto, Azalea Mayor's office ignored slowpoke screams, paid off by executives promising economic boosts from the very industries they ravaged. Even Lance, the champion, uncovered ties too tangled to sever overnight. Customs agents at Olivine waved through rocket freighters, their ledgers fudged with favors. This graft went bone deep. School board members greenlit grunt volunteers for Pokémon classes, embedding recruiters young. Port Authority heads in Vermilion hosted lavish game corner parties, their loyalty bought with slots access and promises of protection rackets. Decades passed because officials weren't just bribed, they were invested, holding silent stakes in front businesses, their pensions tied to Rocket's flow. A Johto councilman exposed in whispers had his mansion furnished with black market Persian rugs, his silence golden. Kanto prosecutors dropped cases after anonymous donations to re-election funds, letting Silph Co. Raids fade into footnotes. Giovanni played the long game, cultivating these puppets so thoroughly that when the protagonist struck, the organization merely slithered to new shadows. Feel the weight of that shadow economy now, how it warped towns into hollow shells, Vermilion's fishermen cursing empty nets, Celadon's knights alive with desperate spins, officials sleeping sound on pillowcases of dirty bills. Yet, for all the defeats at Silph or the radio tower, the black market pulsed on, funding the next Mecca, the next clone. It's this invisible tide that kept Team Rocket immortal, shaping the Pokémon world from its underbelly. But what happens when a single spark ignites against that tide? In Chapter 25, The Hero's Catalyst, you'll uncover the pivotal figure who turned scattered resistance into an unstoppable force, forcing even Giovanni to question his throne. Stick around, because this changes everything. Those underground casinos and shadowy front businesses didn't just launder dirty money, they funneled billions into an arsenal that turned Team Rocket into Kanto's most relentless predator, forcing the Pokémon League to evolve from a loose network of gym leaders into a fortress of vigilance. Giovanni's Silph Co. takeover in Saffron City marked the breaking point. Rockets swarmed the gleaming skyscraper like a plague, seizing master balls and warping tech labs into torture chambers for Pokémon experiments. The League, caught flat-footed, watched as grunts overran the heart of innovation. Professor Oak's frantic calls to champion Lance echoed through emergency channels, but by then, the damage scarred the skyline. That invasion exposed every flaw, lax perimeter scans, unguarded transport routes, even gym leaders moonlighting as syndicate bosses. Giovanni himself, Viridian's 8th badge holder, had burrowed deep into the system. In the aftermath, the League scrambled. They rolled out encrypted Pokédex networks for real-time threat tracking, mandatory badge verifications tied to biometric scans, and elite ranger squads patrolling fossil sites and towers. Empty. Moon's fossil heists and the Pokémon Tower hauntings, where a Marowak's ghost wailed over her murdered cub, pushed them further. Security drones now hummed over League headquarters. Evolution inhibitors guarded research vaults, and annual audits probed every gym for rocket infiltration. Without those brazen strikes, the League might have stayed a ceremonial club, celebrating badges over battling true chaos. Red's journey crystallized it all. A boy from Pallet Town, handed Charmander by a trusting professor, stumbled into Rocket's web at Mount Moon. Grunts peddling super potions to force evolutions on wild Pokémon, turning Clefairy into grotesque parodies, lit his fuse. He carved through their ranks, from cerulean hideouts to the Rocket Game Corner's underground casino, where slots masked slowpoke tail auctions. By Silph, Red wasn't just chasing badges, he was dismantling an empire. Giovanni's Persian snarled in defeat, the boss fleeing to train on his own terms. Red's triumphs didn't just disband Rocket, they etched protocols into League stone, challenger vetting, inter-regional alerts, even psychic barriers around Saffron. Blue felt the ripples too, that cocky rival shadowing Red's steps. As Professor Oak's grandson, he dove into the same fires, battling Rocket execs in Celadon while chasing his own league dreams. Their rivalry sharpened by shared foes, Blue claiming the champion throne only after Rocket's shadow loomed large. Without the Syndicate's fossil grabs and radio tower coups, would Blue have pushed past Indigo Plateau complacency? Rocket's greed yanked him from Prodigy to Guardian. Fast forward 3 years to Johto, and Ethan, fresh from New Bark Town, faced the beast reborn. Lake of Rage boiled red with radio waves gone wrong, a Gyarados rampage born of Rocket's evolution accelerators. Lance, now hunting Syndicate signals, teamed with the kid to storm their mahogany lair. Executives Proton and Ariana fell, their masks cracking under pressure. Goldenrod's radio tower became a war zone, Archer's voice booming takeover demands until Ethan silenced them. Rocket's revival, chopping slowpoke tails in Azalea for black market gold, forced Johto's league to sync with Kanto's defenses, joint task forces, waveform jammers, even Dragonite patrols over lakes. Silver's arc cuts deepest, Giovanni's own blood-turning blade against the family trade. Abandoned in Johto's shadows, he stole Pokémon with feral rage, echoing his father's empire. But Rocket's Goldenrod siege pulled him in, battling alongside Ethan against the execs who craved Giovanni's return. Silver's Crobat clashed with Proton's bottle caps and Petrel's disguises, his path twisting from thief to redeemer. By the time he confronted his father in the Viridian ruins, Rocket had forged him anew. Giovanni's offer of command? Spurned. The Syndicate didn't just shape Silver, it shattered and rebuilt him, all because their chaos collided with a boy's buried heart. Team Rocket's presence forced the development of the Pokémon League security, turning sleepy circuits into steel trap vigilance. Picture the boardrooms now. Holographic maps pulsing with grunt sightings, AI predicting heists from slowpoke sales spikes. Their role in shaping the journeys of Red, Blue, Ethan and Silver runs like a fault line through Pokémon history, each badge earned in Rocket's glare, each evolution a defiance of their labs. Strip away that great evil, and the world's greatest heroes never rise. No Mount. Moon Showdown's birthing Red's legend. No Silph rescues crowning Blue. Ethan sleeps soundly without Lake Rage's fury. Silver drifts untethered, no Syndicate sins to atone. Rocket's villainy wasn't mere backdrop, it was the forge, hammering boys into champions who redrew the stars. Their shadow lingers, threading through timelines and worlds untouched by Kanto's fall. Up next, Chapter 26, the multiversal constant reveals how Team Rocket endures as Pokemon's unbreakable thread across every reality. What twisted constants keep them rising, no matter the dimension. Even as Team Rocket's shadow molded the Pokémon League into a fortress of vigilance and carved unbreakable destinies for trainers like Red, Blue, Ethan and Silver, one unyielding truth lingers in the fractured fabric of the Pokémon world. The Syndicate endures. No matter how many defeats pile up, no matter the region or the era, their emblem flashes back into view, a persistent stain that no purge can erase. Consider the timelines themselves. Those branching paths of canon that sprawl across games, anime, manga, and beyond. In the raw grit of Kanto's original Red and Blue, Giovanni scatters his forces after Silph Co, only to reform them in Johto's haze 3 years later, chopping slowpoke tails and blasting radio waves into Lake of Rage to force evolutions on a scale that births a Crimson Gyarados roaring in fury. Heart Gold and Soul Silver replay this revival with sharper edges, executives like Archer and Proton seizing Goldenrod's airwaves, their voices crackling with demands for Giovanni's return. Yet, even when protagonists dismantle the hideouts, the grunts slink away into the fog, regrouping like smoke, refusing to dissipate. This isn't coincidence, it's design. Team Rocket persists across every timeline, game, and adaptation because they embody the underbelly that every heroic saga demands a counterforce to balance the light. Spin the dial to Pokémon Generations, those haunting shorts from 2016. and you see Ethan and Lance breaching the Lake of Rage under stormy skies, grunts scattering as red scales gleam in the downpour. Flashbacks to Goldenrod's siege pulse with the same relentless drive, Giovanni's illness cured not by mercy, but by forbidden herbs plucked from time-warped groves with Celaby's aid. He rises again, offering his son Silver a throne in the darkness. Rejected, but the offer hanging like an open wound. Manga pages in Pokémon Adventures twist this further. Admins chasing legendary birds across warped skies, manipulating Arceus itself to forge Pokémon from pure myth. Petrol's betrayal unravels in shadows, only for the true Giovanni to emerge, his presence a gravitational pull that realigns the chaos. Masters X on mobile screens summons them to Pacio's arenas, bartering Aether Foundation secrets to rip open Ultra Wormholes, grunts swarming with nets for beasts from other worlds. Giovanni teleports out in the end, a phantom leader whose laugh echoes through the code. And then there's Pokémon Go, where Domino's elite squad deploys in the real world's augmented haze, recapturing Mewtwo from its mountain lair, bases humming with cloned echoes until the psychic legend erases their memories in a psychic blaze. Mewtwo Strikes Back replays the fury, Mecca crumbling as the original clone rejects its creators once more. Across anime episodes stretching decades, Jessie, James, and Meowth bumble through thefts with Mecca that explode in fireworks of failure, yet they report back to Giovanni's throne room, their loyalty a comedic thread weaving through the Syndicate's grim tapestry. At the heart of this endurance stands Giovanni, a fixed point in the Pokémon lore, the shadow of humanity cast long and unyielding. He's not just a boss, he's the constant, the dark mirror to every trainer's ambition. In every iteration, he wears the Viridian Gym leader's cloak, funds horrors from Cinnabar Labs, where Mewtwo awakens in rage, cloning the dead child's soul into fury. Whether curing his disease with time Pokémon or summoning alternate evils, Giovanni anchors the multiverse's criminal axis. Humanity's greed, ambition, exploitation. They wear his face, his Persian at his feet, his voice commanding grunts from hidden silos. Defeat him, and he vanishes to train, only to return, because without his shadow, the light of champions loses contrast. This fixed point pulls in others, converging threats into something apocalyptic. Witness the recurring theme of Rainbow Rocket, that multiversal alliance where Giovanni unifies all criminal leaders under his banner. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon unleash it fully. From another dimension, he arrives with a Mewtwo at his side, rallying Archie with his drowned Kyogre, Maxi clutching a scorched Groudon, Lyssandra's ultimate weapon gleaming, even Guzma's Buzzwole horde. Their rockets streak across Alola's skies, a rainbow of ruin aimed at rewriting worlds. Masters EX echoes this, wormholes spitting out these tyrants for Pacio's battles, Giovanni's charisma binding them like iron. Generations hints at it too, with Lieutenant, Surge, Koga and Sabrina, Kanto's own gym elites turned admins, fusing captured birds into Thuphizer, a monstrous hybrid born from badge-amplified power. It's Giovanni's vision, not solitary crime, but a symphony of shadows, leaders from every timeline bending to his will. Even in anime crossovers, echoes of this unification ripple, Mecca deploying in fleets that hint at grander coalitions just beyond the horizon. Why does this persist? Because Team Rocket isn't a villain to vanquish, they're the multiverse's immune response to purity. Every game reboot, every anime season, every manga arc, they resurface, adapting, evolving, their black art gleaming on uniforms in distant regions. From Kanto's fossil thefts in Mount Moon's dripping caves to Johto's rage-induced evolutions under radio static, from Arceus manipulations in cosmic voids to ultra beast hunts through fractured rifts. Their tech, radiation beams mutating flesh, rocket balls crushing wills, cloning vats bubbling with forbidden life, pioneers the cruelty that heroes must overcome, yet it never fully breaks. Giovanni's shadow ensures it. The man who sells slowpoke tails on black markets, who launders through goldenrod casinos, who dual-wields gym badges and crime empires. He's the fixed point because humanity needs its darkness. Without it, trainers like Red wouldn't climb Silph Co. Its towers amid laser fire and screams, Ethan wouldn't dive Lake of Rage's depths with Lance's dragon roaring overhead. Silver, his own blood, rejects it but carries the scar, a living testament to the pull. Rainbow Rocket crystallizes this unification. A what-if made canon, where Giovanni doesn't lead alone, he conducts. Archie's seas flood timelines. Maxie's lands crack open realities. Lissandra's flares burn through dimensions. Defeated in Alola, they scatter but the seed plants. What if they won? What if the multiverse bowed? This constant whispers of wars yet to end, battles unfinished across the stars. As we turn to Chapter 27, The Unfinished War, you'll uncover the battles that rage on in secrecy, the fronts where Team Rocket's remnants clash without heroes to stop them. Hold on tight, because the Syndicate's true endgame is only just beginning. That shadow of humanity Giovanni represents doesn't fade with the timelines. It adapts, it evolves, right alongside the Pokémon world itself. In the modern landscape, where trainers battle through augmented reality apps and massive arenas in places like Pacio, Team Rocket never fully vanished. Their grunts still deploy in the wilds of Pokémon Go, coded into the very fabric of the game, swarming Pokestops and gyms with that familiar black rem blazoned on their uniforms. Under Elite Agent Domino's command, they hunt Mewtwo and its clones, setting up bases in forgotten hideouts once ravaged by psychic fury. Mewtwo scatters them with a teleport, erases their memories in a flash of raw power, but the next wave arrives, uniforms crisp, ambitions unchanged. You can feel the persistence in Masters X, that mobile battleground where timelines collide. There, Giovanni Brokers deals with the Aether Foundation for Ultra Beast Intelligence, ripping open wormholes across Pacio to snag otherworldly prizes. They summon echoes of drowned worlds, Archie with his Kyogre crashing the scene, all to bolster their arsenal. Grunts flood the field, executives like Archer barking orders, only to scatter when heroes unite. Yet Giovanni teleports away each time, a ghost in the machine, his Persian at his side, eyes gleaming with unfinished business. Even in the anime's endless run, Jessie, James, and Meowth bumble through schemes in new regions like Galar and Paldea, their mecha exploding in fireworks of failure, but always reporting back to the big boss's shadowy network. This is the current status of the organization in the modern Pokémon landscape. Fragmented cells operating from hidden labs in Alola's jungles, digital outposts in Go's global map, and multiversal rifts in spin-offs. They're not the monolithic force that seized Silph Co. Anymore, they've gone viral, decentralized, infiltrating every app update and event raid. Slowpoke tails still fetch black market prices, now funneled through encrypted apps and underground streams. Experiments continue in backrooms, radiation emitters tuned for Gigantamax forms, cloning tech eyeing Eternatus. The R logo flickers on screens worldwide, a reminder that defeat in one region just shifts their focus to the next. But here's the real puzzle that keeps you up at night. Why does this group never truly dissolve, despite repeated defeats by 10-year-old trainers with a starter and a dream? Think about it. Red storms the Rocket hideout at 12, fists clenched around his Charizard, Ethan and Lance carve through the Lake of Rage at the same tender age. Gold topples the radio tower, Silver, Giovanni's own blood, turns the tide. Kids with Pokédexes in hand humiliate executives, scatter grunts like leaves in a storm. Giovanni himself flees Saffron, tail between his legs, claiming he'll train harder. Yet 3 years later, the remnants rally, chanting his name like a prayer. The answer lies in their bones-deep structure, built to survive apocalypse. Grunts are cannon fodder, recruited from the desperate orphans of poverty like Jessie, runaways like James, talking Pokémon twisted by ambition like Meowth. They cycle endlessly. One falls, 10 rise, lured by promises of power in a world where Pokémon make kings. Funding never dries, black markets in rare candies, Fossil revivals sold to shady collectors, laundered through goldenrod casinos and celadon fronts. Defeats? They're just pruning. A branch burns in Kanto, another sprouts in Johto, stronger, hungrier. Ideology binds them tighter than chains. The creed that Pokémon are tools for the strong, that humanity deserves dominion. 10-year-olds win battles, but they can't erase that fire. And always the myth of Giovanni sustains it. The unbeatable gym leader, the man who cloned a god, whispered to return and reward the faithful. That myth isn't idle chatter. The lingering threat of Giovanni's eventual return hangs like storm clouds over every region, his ultimate endgame for the world pulsing in hidden communiques. In Pokémon Generations, Gold's herbs and Celaby cure his mystery disease, pulling him back from the brink. He offers Silver a throne, rejected, but the machine revs up again. In the manga, he thwarts Petrel's coup, eyes fixed on Arceus itself. Master's X shows him plotting wormholes to every dimension, weaponizing Ultra Beasts for conquest. His vision? Not mere profit, but total control, Pokémon bent to human will on a planetary scale, evolutions forced, legendaries leashed, trainers reduced to irrelevance. He vanished after Cinnabar, after the birds fused into Thufaizer, after every humiliation. But his Persian prowls the shadows, a signal to the faithful, the boss endures. Generations pass, games remake themselves, Heart Gold, Soul Silver in 2009, breathing new life into old sins, yet Rocket's war machine idles waiting. In Pokémon Go's raids, his silhouette looms in boss encounters, a digital spectre promising escalation. The kids grow up, become champions, but new ones step forward and Rocket adapts, their labs humming with forbidden tech. Rocket balls that crush wills, Mecha swarms blotting skies, cloning vats birthing armies. Defeats by children? Mere delays. The real war unfinished. Giovanni's shadow lengthening toward a reckoning, where he claims it all. And that reckoning ties directly into the full truth revealed in Chapter 28. The full truth revealed, where every thread of their secret shaping of the Pokémon world pulls taut. You won't believe how deep it goes. Even as those 10-year-old trainers topple their bases time and again, Team Rocket endures because their fingerprints are etched into the very foundations of the Pokémon world, pulling strings from the shadows that no victory can fully erase. Consider the genesis of it all, back in the misty caves of Mount Moon, where the first whispers of their empire echoed. Grunts swarmed like rats in the dark, snatching fossils and moonstones, force-feeding Pokémon a volatile brew that twisted their evolutions into grotesque parodies of nature. The air reeked of chemical burn, the ground slick with the residue of ambition unchecked. This wasn't mere theft, it was the opening salvo in a war for supremacy, alerting a boy named Red to the rot festering beneath Kanto's sunny facade. From those fossil heists, they escalated to outright slaughter at the Pokémon Tower in Lavender Town, where a Marowak's bones still rattle with the grudge of a mother's murder. Grunts stood guard over bubbling vats of experiments, their faces masked, but eyes gleaming with the thrill of dominion. Giovanni, the puppet master disguised as Viridian gym leader, orchestrated it all from his opulent casino in Celadon, funneling black market cash from slowpoke tails, chopped and sold like contraband delicacies. His vision? Not just profit, but Pokémon bent to human will. Rare beasts trafficked to the highest bidder. Then came the masterstroke at Silph Co. In Saffron City, a gleaming tower of innovation turned fortress of fear. Team Rocket seized the Master Ball technology, the ultimate cage for any creature, legendary or not. Explosions rocked the halls, scientists cowering as executives like Proton and Petrel barked orders, their Persian at heel like loyal enforcers. Red stormed through, badges blazing, forcing Giovanni to feign disbandment, slinking away to nurse his wounds on Cinnabar Island. But beneath that volcanic lair, Dr. Fuji labored in secrecy, cloning Mew into Mewtwo, using the husk of a dead child named Amber as its cradle. When Mewtwo awoke, psychic fury shattered the lab, flames licking the sky as Giovanni's greatest weapon turned on him, vanishing into legend. 3 years later, in Johto's fog-shrouded lakes, the remnants clawed back from oblivion. Without Giovanni, they hacked slowpoke tails in Azalea Town's well, the creature's agonized cries muffled by well water turned red. At Lake of Rage, radio waves pulsed like a siren's call, mutating Magikarp into a colossal red Gyarados that rampaged through the night, scales glistening under moonlight. Ethan and Champion Lance infiltrated the hideout, battling Ariana and Petrel amid whirring machines that hummed with forbidden power. The Goldenrod radio tower became their next prize, hijacked by the quartet of executives, Archer's cold precision, Ariana's venomous flair, Petrel's sly disguises, Proton's brute tech. Silver, Giovanni's own estranged son, turned the tide alongside Gold or Crystal, his conflicted fury mirroring the organization's fractured soul. Even the legendary birds fell to their nets. Lieutenant Surge corralling Zapdos in electric storms, Koga binding Articuno in icy traps, Sabrina ensnaring Moltres with psychic chains, all to challenge Red himself. Fused into the abomination Thuphizer through Green's badge amplifier, they embodied Rocket's hubris, birds of myth reduced to weapons. This is the secret history of how one crime family shaped the fate of the Pokémon world, their tendrils weaving through every region, every timeline. In Pokémon Generations, they raid Celadon with surgical brutality, only for Gold's herbs from a spike-eared Pichu and Celaby to cure Giovanni's wasting disease, pulling him back from the brink. The manga sees them manipulating Arceus itself, birthing Pokémon of myth from legendaries tracked across dimensions. Masters EX reveals wormholes torn open in Pacio, Ultra Beasts snatched for Giovanni's arsenal, alternate tyrants like Archie summoned with Kyogre's floods. Even Pokémon Go deploys Domino's elite squad to reclaim Mewtwo, only for the clone to erase their memories in a psychic cataclysm. Their tech pioneered the nightmares, evolution rays bathing Pokémon in radiation's glow, mind control armor clamping free wills, rocket balls that suck in without mercy, mecha swarms blotting out skies. The anime's bumbling trio, Jessie with her poverty-scarred rage, James fleeing gilded chains, Meowth's heartbreaking bid for humanity, masks the horror, their mecha exploding in farce while reporting to the boss who sees them as expendable. Yet even they echo the truth. Rocket's shadow sparks gym reforms under Giovanni's dual reign, forges heroes like Red and Ethan, unleashes Mewtwo's rampage, draws Lance and Silver into the fray. Giovanni stands at the vortex, Viridian's gym leader by day, Rocket's Kaiser by night. His legacy? A visionary monster or a necessary evil? He dreamt of humanity, unbound by Pokémon's whims, channeling their power into conquest where leagues dithered in pageantry. Cloning Mewtwo cracked open godhood's door, experiments birthed tools that reshaped battles forever. Without him, would Red have risen? Would the League's security harden, heroes tempered in Rocket's fire? Yet the cost, mothers slain, legends enslaved, children like Amber's ghost fueling abominations, marks him monster eternal, ambition devouring ethics whole. Visionary, yes, for seeing Pokémon as tools in evolution's grand machine. Evil incarnate, for wielding that sight without remorse. Necessary? Perhaps the thorn that pricks progress, the villain whose defeats birth saviors. Team Rocket remains the most iconic and terrifying force in the franchise because they mirror our darkest potentials. Greed cloaked in grandeur, innovation twisted to cruelty, persistence that defies even children's purity. No other foe dissolves into comedy or obscurity. They reform, adapt, haunt every horizon, a criminal spectre ensuring the world's light shines brighter against their endless night. Their story isn't ended by badges or Pikachu's thunder, it's woven into the Pokémon tapestry, a warning that shadows never truly fade. As the echoes of their schemes settle across Kanto's peaks and Johto's waves, one truth lingers undeniable. The Rocket legacy endures, reshaping destinies long after the final grunt falls. What did you think of this journey? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this changed your perspective or taught you something new, consider subscribing for more mind-expanding content. And if you know someone who would find this as fascinating as you did, share it with them. These are the kind of conversations that matter.